did my parents push me? I always say they never pushed me, they firmly encouraged me. And it was something like this. As I sat down between them, they said to me, okay, don't worry, next time better, etc. And I said, no, I'm going to retire, move back home, swum for so many years, etc. And they listened and they said, okay, we'll support you if you want to do that. And then my mom said, and you can forever wonder what if. That was like a dagger. Then she said, despite how you feel right now, so important, you can choose, and this is the third greatest, I think, one of the greatest gifts, but the third point, you can choose. We all have the power of choice. You can choose to look at this failure and learn from it. Because it's in the midst of your failures and your disappointments. Therein lies the nuggets of truth, the very things we need to learn that will catapult us onto tomorrow's successes. Had that not happened, had Rome's failure not happened, I'm 100% certain that the success of Atlanta would not have happened. Make wise choices, not on the whim of an emotion, because had I gone on my emotions, I would have retired 3 definite times in my career. Make a decision that despite how I feel, I would continue until I reach that point in my life where I can honestly say I've done the absolute best with the talent that I was given.
Sure, that is Penny Haynes, a South African Olympic gold medalist and swimmer. And yeah, what an important way of opening up the talking point this morning. 3 times she almost definitely gave up. But what would have happened if she did? She would have never experienced the glory of what would be the height of her career as an Olympic swimmer. It's 11 after 9 o'clock. Welcome to the Talking Point. My name is Cathy Mohlahlana, and I'll be with you until midday. It's a pleasure to be in your company as we lead conversations that move us. Coming up on the show today, we're going to start it off with the open line, your National Roundtable. I'll be taking your calls on 086 000 2032. That's the number to dial, 086 000 2032. On the WhatsApp voice note line, 0614 104 107. And that's for your WhatsApp voice notes and your text messages. Coming up on the show today, for Citizens Corner, we're going to be continuing our conversation on the death penalty. Yes, we have seen the public calls from some civil society organizations and from some South Africans about the reinstatement of the death penalty. We started that conversation 2 weeks ago. We're going to be continuing it today with Justice Edwin Cameron. He's the inspecting judge of correctional services and also a retired judge of the Constitutional Court. So really, nobody better to hear reflections about this matter from a constitutional perspective, from a legal perspective, but he would also know and understand the frustrations that many South Africans have on the escalating levels of crime in this country. We seem to be held hostage by crime, right? We are being terrorized by criminals, and this is happening in our homes. When we look at some of the crime figures that were run through yesterday, you would have heard it in news. But South Africans are most attacked in their homes, robberies in homes. And that in and of itself is a problem, because this is where, you feel the safest. This is where you want to be protected the most. So if you can't be safe within your own home, where can you run to? We'll have that conversation with Justice Edwin Cameron in the second hour of the show. And then the final hour, we're going to be looking at the issue of HIV/AIDS. Now, South Africa, of course, continues to carry the burden of the highest rate of HIV in the world. 7.8 million people, at least, in this country diagnosed living with HIV. And it's part of why we have such a big program when it comes to responding to this pandemic in the country. So the final hour, we're going to be looking at the challenges around HIV, the opportunities, and to what extent HIV and ending HIV is still something that we are pursuing as a country. at some point the world was talking about eradication of HIV by 2030. Where do we stand today with 7.8 million people living with HIV? Can we think of a future where this disease is not something that is affecting so many people within our society? That's a conversation we'll have for the final hour of the show. And then, of course, we'll wrap things up with our G20 series with Lerato Tsebe. That's what you can expect coming up on the Talking Point today, right through until midday. Of course, one of the big stories is something that we were watching yesterday, except at the time, all we had was the statement from the Judicial Commission of Inquiry, and this is the inquiry looking into criminality, political interference, and corruption in the criminal justice system. So all we had was a statement from them saying they are not going to be able to start the work that they've been commissioned by the President to do on the 1st of September. Throughout the day, then came out more details about why this is the case. We heard from Justice Mohlahlana, and we also heard from Minister Kubai on the difficulties that had been experienced behind the scenes. But it's, I don't know whether it's, saddening is not the appropriate word. I guess on some level, perhaps somewhat even infuriating. That, number one, things are here, but it's the reasons for why we are here that I think South Africans have a right to be upset about. Listen to what Justice Mohlahlana said in talking about this particular commission. And he was giving reflections on just what has transpired to this point. He talks about the fact that and this is now, I'm quoting the Mail and Guardian on this. He says, due to the procurement processes having failed, unfortunately, the commitments have not been made. As a result, it has since become clear that the Commission won't be able to start the hearings as scheduled. What is most regrettable is that a substantial portion of the 3-month period has gone by without the Commission having heard a single witness. This is not of the Commission's making. They haven't had an opportunity to even begin speaking to witnesses to prepare for what the hearings then will be. How far off are we still from this Commission even beginning? As things stand, there is no date. It has now become an internal matter within the Justice Ministry where there are various investigations going on. So what happens in the meantime? Are we going to have to wait for those internal investigations to be concluded before the procurement processes or whatever needs to be done is done so that this ship can get back on the sail? And if we have to wait for the internal processes to ensure that, people are not going to break the rules and say, but the public put pressure on us, so when we felt the pressure, we decided, let's do whatever it is that we can so that South Africans are not upset. Because we also know that that's part of what the danger is. It's in deviations, right? Throwing the rule book out. And it unfortunately opens the window to corruption, mismanagement. Go to the Auditor General report. I think the script is there. We know how things play out right now. So what must happen between now and when we know that this commission can begin its work? Is it something that is still going to get underway on this side of the year? The EFF says that it's yet another example of government pulling the wool over our eyes, that they're pulling a fast one on us, made us believe that we're going to do something about it. But processes and difficulties and all sorts of other explanations are going to lead to this commission not really being able to get to the bottom of what it is going to do. So what must South Africans say? What must South Africans do in the meantime when we know just how important it has been for many people to get the confidence and the assurance that the criminal justice system functions? Because people know their experiences. They know what they see at police stations. They know what they see when they're at the country's courts. It is so unfortunate that this is the kind of start that this commission has. And it goes back again to why things are not working in this country. Because you have public servants that just don't do what they're supposed to do. But is the story really as simple as that? Or is there much more at play here? I'll take your call, 086 000 2032. That's the number to dial, 086 000 2032. On the WhatsApp voice note line, 0614 104 107.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
Do you know what's hiding behind colorful packaging of unhealthy food? Big food companies target children with unhealthy packaged foods that hide high levels of sugar, salt, and fat, which could lead to heart disease, diabetes, and hypertension. But the truth is hidden from consumers. Front of package warning labels are a proven solution to help consumers make informed decisions. The government must act now. We have the right to know what's in our food. Demand front of package warning labels. Sign the petition on heala.org, HEALA.org, by 30 September.
Early hours of the morning, our champions of democracy open voting stations for us. 55% of the 27.6 million registered voters are women. We salute your strength and leadership. Late into the night, they count votes for us. Majority of women voted in the last elections. We salute women championing democracy and shaping South Africa's future. Make your voice heard at the ballot. All roads lead to the 2026 local government elections. Register or update your details. Show up and let your vote count. Here's to Women's Month. Women champion democracy. Visit elections.org.za for more or call 0800 11 8000. This message is brought to you by the IEC.
SAFM brings you the Women's Circle on Friday, the 29th of August, live at Santon Hotel, celebrating the business of arts and women in South Africa. Tune in to the Full Circle with Bridget Masenga from 1 to 3 p.m. as we unpack a generational conversation with a captivating panel this Women's Month. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. Gender-based violence is destroying lives and tearing communities apart. It happens in homes, in schools, at workplaces, and too often in silence. But it doesn't have to continue. If you see it, speak out. If you are hurting, reach out. Because doing nothing is not an option. Listen to all 19 SABC radio stations from Wednesday, the 23rd of July for hard talk, discussions, advice, dramas, educational shows, and interviews around GBV with experts, survivors, lawmakers, and a whole country affected by gender-based violence. All on your favorite SABC radio station. Call 0800 428 428 to report abuse or get help. GBV, it ends with you. This message is brought to you by the SABC. Call us on 086 000 2032.
We continue then with the open line. Let's get straight into it. Parks, you're in Cape Town. Good morning.
Good morning, Cathy, and good morning to your listeners.
Yes, sir.
Cathy, about this issue with the cancellation of the commission. It seems
Look,
like...
I don't think cancellation is quite the right word yet. I think postponement, we hope.
Okay, yes. For now, let's say postponement. But from the onset, Cathy, the fact that the way that the president went about it to say that he's going to open up a commission without doing the proper consultations with the various state institutions of, law enforcement, the Justice Department, and of course the NPA, and not just that, other various bodies that have got to do with law enforcement and justice. It says a lot about the lack of planning between government and the president itself, in that they seem to be working in silos. The very fact that there's word that is coming out that none of the people who are to be subpoenaed as witnesses are available, or there's no gathering of those witnesses, even from the onset, to be able to prepare them that they're going to be appearing before the commission. And it's going to be another case of the state capture where very few people have been brought to book, and there's still a whole list of them, with some of them may be going to foreign countries where it's going to be difficult to actually expedite them back into the country to either witnesses or give account. So this is
but Parks, if the president gives a directive, is the onus not on the officials to make sure that it happens? I mean, otherwise, what's the point of being president? Isn't that how it works in every organization? If the leader gives a directive, then people must make it happen.
Yes, Cathy, in a perfect world it is, but as a president, you cannot just rely on, that when you give a directive that people will do it. The president is supposed to say, okay, I've given this directive. Let me also do a follow-up on the president, just to see as to what are the steps that they've taken to do the groundwork, because there's no groundwork that has been done at all. And seemingly, it seems like now there's somewhat a window dressing of some sort to say, okay, let's try and do damage control, because now it has gotten out from the media to the public that there's a possibility that this commission is going to be postponed. As to how long, it isn't definite.
Yeah, and Parks, that for me is one of the most concerning aspects of how things are unfolding. The fact that there isn't even a date that people can commit themselves to right now highlights just how big the problem might be.
It is very concerning, Cathy, and given the image and what this whole commission was supposed to actually speak to the public and also to us as a country as to what is the country doing in terms of showing its concerted effort to try and address this very big issue, because, it speaks to the legacy of state capture and the aftermath that has followed, because with this commission, it should actually speak to the levels at which how deep state capture and the legacy of corruption that state capture has characterized our country to what it is at the current moment. So really the president needs to do better in this one. Yes, he set a precedent by saying, okay, officials, this is what you need to do, but it's not enough. He's supposed to actually do a follow-up. If it means, for lack of a better word, micromanage them.
Okay. Parks out in Cape Town. Thanks for that contribution. Imagine that, a president that has to micromanage ministers. And what would that mean for departments too? Because then that means that those ministers must micromanage, the leadership of the organizations. Is this now not part of where the interference happens? Does this not go back to why this kind of investigation is necessary even in the first place? We'll continue with your calls on the open line. For now, it's 9:30.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, the Somerset West taxi rank has been closed by the South African Police Service for 24 hours to prevent further taxi-related violence. At least 6 people have been shot in taxi-related violence in Cape Town this week. The High Court in Johannesburg will today hear an urgent application by businessman and philanthropist Colin Mashawana. He filed papers with the High Court seeking an interdict to stop a news publication to report further on his alleged involvement in the IDT's multi-million rand looting scandal. And Defend Our Democracy movement says given the seriousness of the allegations the Madlanga Judicial Commission is set to investigate, there should be a greater sense of urgency and preparedness. I'll have details on these and other stories at 10.
If we have rights, shouldn't we also have opinions? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
With the ever-changing financial landscape, it can be difficult to make sense of all the moves at times. Join me, Jimmy Moyaha, on the SAFM Market Update with MoneyWeb, Mondays to Thursdays, 6 to 7 p.m, as we break down the key market trends, top financial stories, and smart investment insights, all in one place. It's everything you need to stay financially informed and ahead of the curve.
This Women's Month, SAFM stands with the women shaping South Africa's future. Under the theme, Building Resilient Economies for All, we honor the pioneers, the problem solvers, and the everyday heroes driving change. Stay tuned as SAFM brings you powerful stories and meaningful conversations that move us. SAFM, celebrating women, celebrating progress. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
The most dangerous land animal in the world. Hippopotamus.
This is more than about a hairstyle. It's about self-love and self-worth.
The Most High created people with hair. He made a man with hair and beard so that they can look like lions, but people choose to make them look like hippopotamus.
I'm having a little bit of a patch in my head and I'm cutting a cheese bob. Now with me it's such a bad patch because it started behind and I had such a fluffy hair.
Come festive seasons, we used to really take beautiful stones, put Vaseline on our hair, stretch our hair.
God made man to look like a lions with their hair and their beard. Now they cut their hair to look like a hippopotamus. So now when I look at the hippopotamus on my phones here, I see the men who like to cut their hair everywhere.
There's others like me who have impanda. So, when you have impanda and you let your hair grow when you're impanda, then you have to think about cutting your hair and look like a hippopotamus like the other speaker has said. Like in impanda, everybody commenting, you have your beard, you have your banban.
Just again Google the hippo and I think the gentleman is correct. I'm glad I keep my hair.
No man likes to go bald. We all like to have hair, but we got to live. We live with what we've got, and and we look in the mirror and we look fine.
Hashtag SAFM Talking Point.
We continue the conversation on the talking point. Just reflections on the conversation on the open line yesterday. Of course, I'm taking your calls on 086 000 2032. On the WhatsApp voice note line, 0614 104 107. Alvin, you in Bushbuck Ridge. Good morning.
Good morning, Cathy. How are you?
Good, sir. Thank you.
Yes. Cathy, I'm here to talk about the delay in the starting of the commission that was supposed to begin on the 1st of September.
Mm.
You know, it's very worrying that this kind of behavior from public servants is continuous and there's no consequences for it. I mean, for one, when the president mentioned that this was supposed to take place, I'm sure that the first thing that was supposed to happen is that the very next day, a motion was supposed to have been set to get everything that the president requires that it be set in motion in place. But then it happens. And again, there are no consequences to the public servants or the people who are responsible for making sure that what the president said should happen should take place. And again, the president will keep quiet about it. The office of the president will not show any consent whatsoever. So it's a worrying. It shows that we have adapted to mediocrity as a nation. You know, and then I don't want to go back into the previous commissions that happened, and then the recommendations were not carried through. So it just comes to reveal the state of the nation, how we are just dragging our feet over everything. Nothing is being taken serious. And we're supposed to be a serious nation. We're supposed to have a president who leads us boldly, and we're supposed to have public servants who take the public very serious. The only time that this kind of people take us serious is when it's time for elections, when they're supposed to benefit from us. But besides that, no consequences whatsoever. So it's worrying. It's a revelation of the state of the nation as a whole. What the president reads every year as a state of the nation is not the actual state of the nation. The state of the nation is what we are seeing right now happen right before our eyes. Yes.
Alvin, you've really hit the nail on the head, because it is an expression of the extent to which there's just a mediocrity that has been enabled, that is cushioned. It does not make sense how any leader go into any of these multinational companies that sit down the road in Sandton and see what happens in those organizations when there are directives issued at a leadership level. Worse yet, if some of these companies are headquartered in other parts of the world. You just don't get a situation where a leader gives and issues a directive and it doesn't happen because staff didn't. What was going on in the daily updates and the daily and the weekly reporting? Because with something of this nature, when you have over 60 million South Africans watching, waiting with expectation and anticipation, that is the weight that you wear. So we have to now see at which point did they recognize that there was going to be an issue? How was that escalated to ensure that it doesn't get there? It's basic planning.
Exactly. You know, sometimes we tend to, it worries me as a citizen that at times we have to, as government, go and procure services from the public sector because they carry through what they promise in a much more excellent way than the government side. So this might actually be a revelation of the attitude and the behaviors of public servants in all municipalities and other sectors. I'm sorry to drag the municipalities into all this, but no one is being surprised. No one is surprised about it. It's like, okay, then it happened, life has to go on. And as you rightly stated, that there's no prominent organization, private organization that can, the CEO or the managing director can give a directive and it can be undermined and then there are no consequences for it. So it goes back to belittle the word of the president. It makes him look like just a commoner, and it makes him look like he's a puppy, someone who's without power. And to think that we're led by that kind of leadership, and for this kind of people who have made sure that this thing is delayed to suffer no consequences, it's also very concerning.
Okay, look, there is a suspension that has been effected, and we're told an investigation that is also going to be conducted into the DG, and the deputy. But the point is that it really should not even have gotten here in the first place. Thanks, Alvin. Let me move on to Sakina. You're in Durban. Good morning.
Good morning. I want to just bring up, whenever we talk about state capture, it's generally we always talk about people of color capturing state organs. And I wanted to bring something to attention because civil society activist has taken on the media, because the media have been captured by the South African Zionist Federation and the South African Jewish Board for Deputies. But this has also highlighted the fact that not only is the media being paid and taken on free trips to whitewash the genocide, the South African Zionist Federation also took our members of parliament. Now, there has been absolutely no repercussions for that for the members of parliament or for the South African Zionist Federation. And then if we look at other organs of state like the National Prosecution Authority, from 2008, 2010, 2012, young white boys from South Africa went to do trophy hunting in Gaza where they shoot innocent women, children, unarmed people. They come back to South Africa, there's proof of their crimes, but they don't get convicted. So when we talk about state capture, it's very good to talk about organs of state like ESCOM, but why do we not talk about the fact that the South African Zionist Federation, South African Jewish Board of Deputies, which are literally foreign agents, which are capturing South African organs of state to serve a foreign nation? And I feel that this conversation is not happening, because if you look at what's happening in America, and if you look at what's happening in the UK, the interests of a foreign state are being put in front of the interests of that specific country.
Look,
so,
Sakina, I think if memory serves correct, I saw an article. I just can't remember the publication I was reading it in, that was making the very same allegation that you are this morning. And you're talking about the paid trips, right, that would sometimes be sponsored by the Zionist Federation or by the Jewish Board of Deputies, that take different individuals from different sectors and take them to the Middle East. Is that what you're referencing?
Yes, I'm referring to that. That is what has happened. It has come to the light in the last few months. But the Zionist meddling in our internal affairs of South Africa has been happening for many years.
So Sakina, so part of the issue is that you have a number of independent groups, right, that carry out whatever programs, cultural programs, as they would often be spoken about as. And I don't think that, is there a way of limiting those programs? Do you think what should happen is to say, no, this group, you're not allowed to offer these tours to Israel?
Yes. So if I have to put this in very layman's terms, right? South Africa has taken Israel to the International Court of Justice as of 2023 for the crime of genocide.
Yes.
Now, it has been quite established in the mind of millions of people, because we're seeing this genocide live streamed, right? So now, if I can put it into context, we know that the Holocaust happened, and we know how atrocious the Holocaust was. Imagine if the Holocaust was live streamed on our phones and we were seeing people being gassed, right? Now imagine that same organization, the Holocaust, just say Germany is committing the Holocaust live now, right? And then you get a German German embassy and German organs and German Board of Deputies that says, listen, I'm giving you guys a free trip. I'm taking to a different part of Germany.
Sakina, I don't think that you're necessarily comparing apples with apples, because
why?
The example that I gave you was that these are independent groupings that exist, and they're seen as independent groupings.
No,
yes,
let me take you on that, because they're not independent groupings.
With very specific interests. I'm not denying that they have their particular interests, but they're independent groups within society. And so at which point then do we say that members of society cannot affiliate themselves with independent groups that have interests that we might not necessarily support?
Okay.
I think what the issue that you're raising, that is most relevant is about what happens when people are on this trip, especially if they hold public office or if they're members of the media. Do they tell the story as it reflects what is happening on the ground? Or does it become yet another sort of press? I don't know what is happening this morning. But, you know, when you just have organizations that will take members of the media on different tours and say, well, you know, come and see this. And the expectation is that, well, if you write about it, you must tell a good story, but you mustn't reflect what is the actual state of affairs. Yeah, on PR tours, effectively. There are lots of media houses that send journalists on PR tours, but it doesn't mean that the story that comes out of that must be PR.
May I give my own insight into this?
Very
briefly. The people who were invited
Sakina.
onto those trips were not people from the street. They were invited specifically because they hold control of the narrative in terms of access to large readership. And then they were also taken because they have access to the walls of power, which is the opposition party political leaders. So to say that, look, they're going to still go and they're not going to create contacts, there's not going to be networks, they are not going to be at the beck and call of the people who took them on the free trip with many other freebies attached. It's actually quite naive. Because if you look,
Sakina,
our
people have
country
freedom of association, and the best that one can do is to take on what it is that these people are saying post those trips, which is part of what happened. If you remember, I think it was last year, or was it earlier this year, where there was that trip that included MPs going to Israel, and you had some MPs denying that the scale of what we were seeing about this alleged genocide that is happening in the Middle East, that it was not in fact the case. Now, if there's whitewashing, confront that. But the reality is that people have freedom of association. That's how it works. You can't say you can't associate yourself with those individuals because of 1, 2, 3, 4. But you can challenge them on the values. You can challenge them on what you believe are the moral grounds on what they are doing. Mbongeni, you're in KZN. Good morning.
Good morning, Cathy. How are you?
Good, Mbongeni. Go for it.
Mbongeni, Cathy. My take regarding the postponement of the commission is that I wouldn't say I wasn't expecting this. I think this is exactly what the MK was talking about when they said there will be nothing that will come out of this commission. And it's an indictment. It's an indictment, and it speaks of Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa's leadership. Mr. Ramaphosa is always surprised. I remember hearing him speaking in that consultative forum that he had. He was surprised how this situation that we find ourselves in is happening. The man that has been in the helm of the country for close to 8 years, is surprised why whites are finding it easy as compared to blacks. You see, this talks to the leadership of this president that we are having. And my problem with this is that the people that are supposed to be really helping us as the citizens of the country to expose this man for who he is are fighting with him. And I'm not saying a thing. These are NPOs, Helen Suzman Foundation, and the media as well. The media, they are not as robust, as angry as they were during the state capture years. Now, I'm not implying anything, but we are not seeing that kind of zeal and robustness in their engagement when they engage these issues. This president, you see, let me put it this way. When he talked of the commission, to me and to most of us, it was a delaying tactic to try and minimize the damage these allegations that were surfaced by Mkhwanazi were doing to the country. Because he was supposed to do something drastic first to show that he accepts and he acknowledges what Mkhwanazi is saying before this commission takes place. Because the foundation that he has laid, it's a foundation that is not firm enough to tell the people that are reporting to him that this is the direction the president wants us to take. That is my submission, Cathy.
Okay, Mbongeni, heard you loud and clear. We're going to take a quick break. Younger Jeffrey, I'll come to you first.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
After a 1-0 loss against Arsenal in the opening match of the new season, the Red Devils are searching for a win at Old Trafford.
Mason Mount! Oh, what a finish from Mason Mount! Kills it home 2-1.
However, the Clarets are gunning for a crucial 3 points away from home.
Justin Brownell! We're all square! What a goal from Burnley!
This is the Premier League. Experience Manchester United versus Burnley FC on Saturday 30 August at 3:30 p.m. Live on SABC3 and SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game!
From the brilliant buzz of Joburg to the beautiful beaches of the Eastern Cape, FlySafair has you covered. That's right, from 1st November, we'll be flying from Lanseria Airport to both East London and PE, just in time for the holiday rush. Tickets are on sale now from only 770 Rand. So whether it's for work or play, plan your Eastern Cape escape from Lanseria or vice versa. Book now at flysafair.co.za. FlySafair, for the love of fly. T's and C's apply.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
All right, we continue the conversation on The Talking Point. Jeffrey, you're in Lenasia. Good morning.
Good morning, my sister Cathy.
Yes.
Jeffrey,
I need you to please speak a bit louder.
Yes, I'm the best listener to your show.
Yes.
Thank you so much for your contribution. So my point is, my worries is why people are so critical about Ramaphosa, our President Ramaphosa. But what I want to say is we have a good president, a sober-minded president. The ANC, they are criticizing now. It's divided by Mbeki. Mbeki divided this party to the core. And then when our former president Zuma got there, he was so angry and surrounded by a corrupt people whom are now even following him and destroy his good image which he was having in the ANC. So it divided the ANC more than ever. That's why he even took the name Mukondo to divide the ANC more to show that he was an angry man. But anyway, what I'm trying to say, Ramaphosa is dealing with the mess left by Mbeki and Zuma. And then now people are so corrupt everywhere. People are corrupt. And then the community are not there to assist the government. They are saying, Ramaphosa. What can Ramaphosa do? Because if we want to talk about the ANC is a party, we cannot blame it as the most listeners are doing. If they blame ANC, they must mention Mbeki, mention Zuma, mention Ramaphosa also. Because mentioning one person, it's very wrong. It's very wrong. It's very wrong. And then the last thing which I want to say about the ANC.
But Jeffrey, is it not about who's in charge now?
No, it's wrong. It's wrong.
But in the context, but Jeffrey, in the context of what we're talking about, the president makes an announcement, and effectively confirms that this is how very serious allegations are going to be dealt with, and even commits himself to a start date. When things go wrong, this is his process. It's not an ANC process. It's not a process that his predecessors have initiated. It's his process. And that's why people will subsequently criticize him.
Yes, I understand this, your side of story. It's a point also. But what I'm trying to say, when he inherited ANC, he found everything at mess. By the way, these people, this president, they wanted the ANC to die. Because if you study what I'm trying to say, everyone, when they are serving in this government, they are positive. But once they leave there, Nalondo Pando, why now is talking? This one from KZN, why now is talking?
Okay.
Gigaba, why now they are talking? But while they were in that train, things were good. But the last thing, please, which I'm asking you to listen. When the people don't benefit from ANC, they make noise. Even those who are calling into your program, if you can ask them why they are critical, they tried something and they never gain anything, or they never benefited. That's why they are so critical about the ANC. It's a good movement, and people will vote it even when people say it's going to lose.
Okay.
Because,
Jeffrey.
because most people... Thank you.
All right, let's leave it there. Jeffrey out in Lenasia. Yanga, you in Rosebank?
Good morning, Asket.
Yes, sir.
Yes, I said, no, I would like to differ with many of your callers, Asket, to say, what's the rush if the procurement processes are not finalized? Why now must we, because there's this rush, we spend the taxpayers' money in an irregular manner, okay? Because truth be told, it is a commission, but ultimately the money comes from Treasury, and then all regulation must be followed. Because we cannot have a situation, okay, whereby now we will not know, those who are going to provide goods and services. How are they, appointed? Are they BEE compliant? Because now there's this rush, So really, two wrongs cannot make a right. So people must relax, and every South African, who has a capacity, to provide either, IT solutions, must be given an opportunity, on an open tender system. And, we know that this company is BEE compliant and all of that. Not create, this rush. There's going to be a lot of money that is going to be used here, We saw how white lawyers, made money from Zondo Commission. Even in this commission, we must make sure that, black advocates will also benefit from this money. So people must just relax, and allow due processes to be, done 100%.
Yanga, I think that there are many South Africans that will probably agree with what you are saying.
Yes,
if you know it's going to take time, why make commitments? Why set those dates? Why create particular expectations?
Yeah, no, I think it was pressure, it was public pressure on their side, but now we cannot, succumb to a pressure and start a process on a wrong foot just because now there's a pressure. I don't think we will be setting a good precedent. Again, I don't mean to drag municipalities. You know how emergencies are created, you know, at these municipalities so that they can deviate all they like, you know. So we cannot follow that route of Cathy, because now we will be asking questions after this commission to say so and so was providing these services. I mean on what basis, you know? Because so and so could have provided the same service with a lesser amount.
Okay.
So we are opening another, you know, conversation altogether. So things must be done properly. The people must relax.
All right, Yanga in Rosebank, we're going to leave it with you on that note. Maudlin Tembisa says, hi, Cathy. I think you're dropping the ball on this one about interest groups paying certain individuals, thereafter driving a certain narrative. We have to condemn Israel in the strongest terms, because if we have to go by your thinking, then nothing must happen to AfriForum, and just maybe actually there was no apartheid in South Africa. Let's not be blinded and start showing where else we're getting paid. Yeah, look, Maudle, I do think that there's a distinction around the freedom of association that people carry, and it is a freedom that is enshrined in our constitution. Members of AfriForum have a right to join AfriForum. They have a right to hold the views that they have. Now, whether those views are views that advance society, are views that take us forward as a nation to the unity and the diversity that we're pushing for, that's the conversation that we can have. But we can't say that people are not allowed to hold certain views. That's not what we signed up for within our constitutional framework. So by all means, if there are people getting paid to push certain narratives, then those people must be exposed. I did say that it's not about being okay or being comfortable with whitewashing, but certainly the minute we start saying, you can't be seen with this person or you can't be seen with that person, remember, it can't just apply when we think it's bad. What about when it's good? But we have to have the same rules. So call out, criticize, highlight what you think the problem is. But the freedom of association remains. And people have a right to associate with whoever they choose to associate themselves with in society. It's up to us, where we think it's inappropriate, where we think it's wrong, that we call it out for what it is. It's time for the latest news update.
In our top stories, Somerset West taxi rank shut down amid escalating taxi violence, and Trump's tariffs on Indian imports takes effect. Good morning. The Somerset West taxi rank has been closed by the South African Police Service for 24 hours to prevent further taxi-related violence. At least 6 people have been shot in taxi-related violence in Cape Town this week. Western Cape Premier Alan Windey says the ongoing violence between Qatar and Codeta and the collapse of talks between the two taxi organizations has put commuters and the public at risk. Windey says an urgent court application will be filed against these organizations as a measure to quell the violence, intimidation and unlawful operations.
The Western Cape government is in full support of the urgent measures to address the taxi violence that's been ongoing here in the region. The ongoing violence between Carter and Codeta, the collapsed talks between these two taxi groups has definitely put commuters at risk. And we support the South African Police Services, who have put a 24-hour closure into the Somerset West taxi rank.
The High Court in Johannesburg will today hear an urgent application by businessman and philanthropist Colin Mashawana. He filed papers with the High Court seeking an interdict to stop news publication Daily Maverick to report further on his alleged involvement in the IDT's multi-million rand looting scandal. Mashawana is attempting to obtain a gag order to prevent further reporting on corruption allegations against him, his foundation and IDT CEO, Tebogo Malaka. Horisani Sitole reports.
In his urgent court papers filed last week, Mohlahlana has described the Daily Maverick's reporting as defamatory and an attempt to tarnish his name. Mohlahlana is seeking a temporary interdict against Daily Maverick and investigative journalist Peter Louis Maybeck. He wants the court to grant the takedown order for existing articles and a gag order to prevent discussion of the matter at the publication's upcoming The Gathering conference. The Daily Maverick alleges that Mohlahlana, through his Colin Mohlahlana Foundation, made at least 2 payments into IDT CEO Tebogo Malaka's 16 million rand luxurious waterfall mansion while benefiting from a 60 million rand EPWP tender through the IDT.
Defend Our Democracy movement says given the seriousness of the allegations, the Matlanga Judicial Commission is set to investigate. There should be a greater sense of urgency and preparedness. The remarks follow yesterday's announcement that the commission, which was set to start on the 1st of next month, has been postponed due to delays in the procurement of vital infrastructure. The Commission of Inquiry will probe criminality, political interference and corruption in the criminal justice system. The movement's Executive Director, Naledi Kwali.
What is frustrating is that this was an opportunity for the institution to instill confidence, and they've been unable to do that. What they've done is essentially created a longer time for delivery, and that is extremely frustrating considering the institutions implicated, considering how urgently and how openly people need to be able to access these institutions without even preliminary discussions around what's been found and established so far. It creates room for mistrust, and it also leads to speculation as to why are there these delays.
Wisbury residents in Johannesburg have vowed to continue with their protest action until their demands are met. Disgruntled community members took to the streets yesterday and barricaded roads with rocks and burning tyres over water outages. They say water supply has been inconsistent for 8 years now, and they've been without water for 5 consecutive days. The residents say the city of Johannesburg is undermining them as the problem has been going on for close to a decade. Ivan Leon is a pensioner and is on chronic medication.
We are suffering. I never bathed for 3 days now. And I'm also a pensioner. I'm also on medication. I'm a diabetes guy. But what's happening in our community? There's no water. How many times we call the councillors? It's a different story every time. They're giving us the same story every day.
And finally, US President Donald Trump's threats to double the tax on most imports from India has come into effect. Smartphones and pharmaceuticals are exempt. Trump imposed 50% tariffs to punish one of the world's largest economies over its purchases of discounted Russian oil. The BBC's Davina Gupta reports.
It's a heavy blow for Indian exporters, with most goods now facing the harshest ever tariffs of 50% to enter the American market. Earlier this month, Washington had already raised duties to 25%, accusing India of selling far more to the US than it buys. Now President Trump has doubled the rate, punishing New Delhi for buying Russian oil. India imports most of its crude, and last year nearly 40% came from Russia.
Recapping the top story, the Somerset West taxi rank has been closed by the South African Police Service for 24 hours to prevent further taxi-related violence. At least 6 people have been shot in taxi-related violence in Cape Town this week. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide.
SAFM supports a litter-free South Africa. Play your part in keeping our surroundings and environment clean. SAFM, leading the conversation.
SAFM has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech, or contain violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. PO Box 142365, Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
You're listening to The Talking Point. Welcome to the second hour of the show, 9 after 10 o'clock. Coming up in Citizens Corner today, we are going to be running part 2 of our conversation around the death penalty. And this morning, we're going to be joined by Justice Edwin Cameron, and he'll give us the legal perspective in as far as the death penalty is concerned, and I guess also weigh in on why, he believes we might be here as a society again, even having to talk about this conversation, because there was a promise that we made when we drew up our new constitution, that the death penalty is something we're walking away from. But if you recall from the first series that we had 2 weeks ago, our guests also highlighted the fact that coming into the democratic dispensation, there were surveys that were conducted with people by the HSRC around whether or not the death penalty should stay or go. And many people felt that it must be reinstated and that it was an appropriate way of dealing with and managing criminality. So he'll share his insights on this particular conversation. Thank you for all of the voice notes, the text messages that you're sending through to the show. We'll take a couple of those and then get into Citizens Corner for today.
Let's have the conversation. WhatsApp voice notes on 0614 104 107.
Hi, Cathy. It's Val from Cape Town. Honestly, the government does not take us seriously. This commission is just another circus. I mean, if they're failing to put together a procurement process for such a simple thing, how are they going to be able to give us water, electricity, housing? This is a typical example of how we are not getting service delivery. Complete disorganization, complete disdain for the country. It's disappointing.
Kathy, good morning. I'm Tagata in Landy location, Govimvab. My big concern is about this bullying that is happening in our schools. Children are killing each other and there is no intervention. We keep on blaming each other, and the stakeholders in those schools, they blaming the parents because they said these kids are coming from us. So they learn this thing of being bullied at their homes. There is false. Kathy, there are homes where children are not even wanted to be out in the street after 8, but they carry on doing these things at school. I think the constitution need to be pricked somewhere because there are clauses that are really not assisting us. Thanks, Kathy.
Hi, good morning, Katie, and your producer and all the listeners of SFM. Katie, I like to shout out for municipality of Limpopo, Polokwane. It's very clean, it's very neat, Katie. I was there recently, and also I experienced the people of Limpopo. They are so friendly, Katie. I learned how to speak Spedi, and I love it. It's a sweet language. Yo, Katie. I like when they said, I love you, Guru Guru. Gurata Guru Guru. Like I'm a Xhosa guy, but I experienced something, I learn, and I love it, So I like to shout out for those people from Limpopo. I love you guys, like seriously. Yeah, that is my concert for today. Sia from Cape Town. Thank you.
Morning, Kathy. This is Tabisan Bloemfontein. I still repeat that the death sentence, we should reinstate it, not as a deterrent, but as a punishment. for heinous crimes that are happening in South Africa. Crime has gone out of control. Since the dawn of democracy, things have gone west. Crime has... South Africa is like a war zone. We need to do things differently because the system that we are using is not effective, it's not working. But if we can implement death penalty, maybe people will be afraid of committing these heinous crimes.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
Bafana Bafana will host Nigeria in a FIFA 2026 World Cup qualifier at the Toyota Stadium on Tuesday, 9 September at 6 p.m. Tickets are now available nationwide and online from 70 Rand for adults and 40 Rand for children at all Ticket Pro outlets, including Spar, Postnet, and all petrol stations. Get your tickets early to avoid disappointment. Come in Bafana Bafana supporter gear, ready to sing for a win. Gates will open at 3 p.m. If you are not in Bloemfontein, catch the game on SABC2. For more information, visit safa.net and at Bafana Bafana on all social media channels.
SAFM celebrates its 89th birthday this month by giving listeners an exclusive opportunity to attend the prestigious Joy of Jazz taking place at the Sandton Convention Center from the 26th to the 28th of September 2025. To stand a chance to win these sought-after tickets, simply SMS SAFM 89 followed by your name to 41391 and stay tuned to SAFM as we could be calling you. SAFM is the official media partner for the Dipala stage at the Standard Bank Joy of Jazz. Entries open from the 7th of August and close on the 31st of August 2025. Winners will be randomly selected and called from the 1st of September 2025. SMSs are charged at R1.50 per SMS. Free SMSs and SMS bundles do not apply. T's and C's apply. Cathy Mohlahlana is streaming live now on Facebook, YouTube, and X at SAFM Radio.
Well, let me welcome onto the show Justice Edwin Cameron. He's the Inspecting Judge of Correctional Services and also a retired judge of the Constitutional Court. Justice Cameron, good morning to you. Thank you so much for making time for us today.
What a pleasure, Cathy, and delighted to be with SAFM's listeners.
I'm hoping that, Justice, you're going to be able to, I suppose, help us think about this very important issue that has come back into the national discourse of our country, which is the death penalty. We're seeing civil society organizations, some of them at least, propagating for a return of the death penalty. We're also seeing South Africans echo that sentiment because they believe crime has just gotten out of control. It's not a belief, it's a reality. It's what people experience every single day of their lives. Firstly, your reflections on the fact that this is where we are as a society 30 plus years into our democracy. The fact that this is a conversation that is now on the table.
Thank you very much. I would do that with pleasure. I think perhaps we can start with a bit of history and then we're going to go to the present. The history is that we came out of the 1980s and those who were born after 1990 didn't live through that history, but it shaped our country deeply, where the death penalty was used in Pretoria, on the gallows, as you enter Pretoria on what was Potgieter Street, just on your left, 100 meters away, people were being executed. In the late stages of apartheid, the worst year was 164, which meant that every 3 days someone was executed. And many freedom fighters, guerrillas, soldiers of the liberation movements were executed as well. And the overwhelming feeling within the liberation movements, and I don't think this was confined to the ANC, was that the death penalty should be abolished. We'll come to those reasons in a moment. But that was the sentiment, but the ANC decided to leave it to the Constitutional Court. So the negotiating parties developed a full Bill of Rights, and the Bill of Rights included various rights which the Constitutional Court, in the first case, called before it when it assembled in February 1995, heard the challenge to the death penalty. And in due course, all 11 judges, they each gave a separate, thoughtful, powerful judgment, said why this death penalty was incompatible with our democracy. Now, Cathy, if we speed forward, because this morning is not a history lesson, this morning is about what you've spoken about, and I think it's so important for you to have articulated. There is absolute rage amongst our people, and rightly so. There is more than anger, it is rage at the way crime is out of control, at the way gangsters and criminals are oppressing the townships, some suburbs. And as you said, it is out of control. And you said it's not a myth, and I agree with what you said. So fast forwarding to today, I think people are grappling, they're grasping for a way to end this horror. And if they can't end it, at least to respond appropriately to it. And revenge, I have a deep respect for people's feelings for revenge. When I meet families whose toddler has been raped and murdered, how can you not shut up, frankly, when that family tells you their grief and their anger? And I do shut up. So I have a lot of respect for what people are feeling, and I can't counter it. You can't say to people, stop feeling angry, stop feeling rage, stop feeling that government is failing you, because all of those feelings, in my respectful view, are justified. So we can, that's where we are. And the broader perspective is that we failed people on so many counts. We promised gender equality, we promised healthcare, we promised education, we promised, well, we didn't promise it, we aspired to those. The Bill of Rights is an aspirational document that says we have the right of access to many things which we haven't supplied people. In my job, which is inspecting judge of prisons, as you mentioned, Cathy, we have a constitutional promise of conditions of detention for everyone that are compatible with human dignity. My view is that the prison's staff, most of them, not all of them, there are many corrupt staff, but most of them are not corrupt, and the National Commissioner Makoti Tobukhale are doing their best, and they're doing better than a lot of other departments in fulfilling that, but we haven't fulfilled it. Many of our prisons are in an abject and horrible state. So that's the context, Cathy, and I want to sketch it respectfully, because I hope that many people who support the death penalty are going to enter your conversation, and that we can talk with humility and empathy about why the death penalty would be a terrible mistake. And that would be my view, but let's get there.
Justice, the tension that exists between the death penalty and our constitutional framework, I believe, is an important one to try and unpack. You spoke about, revenge, and that being effectively at the heart of, something like the death penalty, because it's a punitive measure. It's I want you to live with the consequences of what you have done, to the point that you not even deserve to no longer live. On the other end of the spectrum, though, is the approach that we have committed ourselves to of restorative justice, that we accept that criminality and wrongs will be done and will exist in society, but ours is an approach that seeks to rehabilitate, restore, and perhaps still see the human potential despite whatever wrong it is that somebody may have done.
Yes.
Unpack that tension for us, because it is also at the heart of the conversation around the reinstatement of the death penalty, because people want to know, but why can't we do it? And why is it so anti-constitution?
Yes. Well, I think you've set out those issues very sensitively. And can I go back a step just to say that I think that the best argument for the death penalty is the one that you mentioned, vengeance. You did a terrible thing, and people are doing terrible things in our country every day, to kids, to women, to taxi drivers, to their opponents, to whistleblowers. Terrible things are happening. And the impulse to vengeance, that you have done a terrible thing to a child or to a whistleblower, you must stand on that scaffold and you must fall 2 meters with a rope about your neck until your spinal cord is gruesomely severed and die hanging there. Now, I describe that because we should remember how we executed people in South Africa. There are other ways, and they also proved to be cruel. They've tried shooting and gas and electrocution and injection in the United States. They're still trying it. They all prove problematic. But the idea that a person who has done something terrible should suffer something terrible is a logical idea. I don't disrespect it. But I don't think the arguments against the death penalty are touchy-feely arguments. Yes, we do commit to rehabilitation, to regeneration of the humanity in everyone, but you can still be committed to that and say, well, you know, we should execute maybe 100 people a year for the most terrible people. The arguments are to me a bit different. And the first argument is that it doesn't work. If the main argument that I hear when people confront me about it is, if we bring back the death penalty, we're going to bring down the murder and rape rate. Well, we don't know much from criminology research, penological and criminological research, but one thing we do know is that the death penalty does not work. There have been exhaustive studies from about the turn of the last century in the United States. I'm imagining these states now, but I think they're close. Kansas abolishes the death penalty, the murder rate goes up. But in neighboring Missouri, they introduced the death penalty and the murder rate also goes up. So there's, and this evidence is replicated over the last 125 century years. So we have almost entirely overwhelming evidence that the death penalty isn't effective to make people more safe. And the second reason is one that you know, I don't want to personalize this, but I appeared for people who were hanged in the 1980s. I appeared for the Sharpeville Six, who, thank heaven, were not hanged. There were amongst the Sharpeville Six people who actually, on that fatal morning in the township, did participate actively in the murder of Mr. Jacob Dlamini, the councillor. But there were people amongst them who were on the fringes of the crowd. And there was one person who I don't even think was proven to be there. And I'm so grateful that the apartheid government realized the stupidity and folly, the horrific folly of wanting to hang the Sharpeville Six because of because I'm opposed to the death penalty, and also because of the innocent people. So the second big argument is that you hang, you execute innocent people. There's no foolproof way of implementing the death penalty without ghastly, terrible mistakes.
So, Justice Cameron, then, I suppose in the context of what you have shared, would you say that those become the overwhelming reasons that the conversation about the death penalty and its reinstatement, that becomes effectively why we should not reinstate it?
I think so, and I think there are additional reasons, Cathy. I visit a lot of prisons, and my fellow staff members at DRIX visit even more prisons than I do. And the demographic profile, to use a statistical concept, of our prisons is exactly the same as it was under apartheid: poor black men. We incarcerate overwhelmingly black men obviously, and because men have a higher crime profile than women over history and across the world, but black men and poor men. So there's a class and racial dimension to our imprisonment figures. And the fact is that poor people and black people suffer disproportionately, preponderantly, overwhelmingly from the death penalty. This is the case in most countries where there are racial disparities and class disparities. So there are additional reasons, and we can go into those, but I do think that you're right, that the main reasons people propound to me are vengeance and also the hope that the death penalty might work. And then underlying vengeance is the quest for justice. How do you say to a family, to Ms. Babita Deokaran's family, we're going to give you justice. And you're going to say to a toddler who was raped and murdered, to her parents and siblings, we're going to give you justice. It's a hollow thing for a lawyer like me to say. So I understand, I shouldn't say I understand, but I appreciate that quest. But let's go wider.
Okay.
I want to go back further one step, if I may.
Justice, I'm going to ask you just to pause it there. I will give you a chance to do that shortly. It's just after 10:30. It's time for your latest news headlines. We're going to continue the conversation with Justice Edwin Cameron. And of course, I'll also give you the opportunity to engage and be part of it.
Thank you, Cathy. On the news headlines on SAFM, I'm Wanda Lambana and a very good morning. The Somerset West taxi rank has been closed by the South African Police Service for 24 hours to prevent further taxi-related violence. At least 6 people have been shot in taxi-related violence in Cape Town this week. The High Court in Johannesburg will today hear an urgent application by businessman and philanthropist Colleen Mohlahlana, and a judge in Brazil has declared the former president Jair Bolsonaro a flight risk and placed him under round-the-clock surveillance while he awaits the verdict of his criminal trial. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
Taking a look at your markets this morning, the rand is currently trading at 17 rand 68 to the dollar, 23 rand 79 to the pound, and 20 rand 53 to the euro. Markets in Asia were mixed at the closing bell, the JSE weaker in mid-morning trade. Markets in Europe are trading lower this hour. Gold is trading at $3,382, platinum $1,339 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $67.20 a barrel.
Mr. Govender, congrats on the retirement. You just sold your car to We Buy Cars. Tell us about it.
Yes, it just gathered dust in the garage, so I exchanged it for cold hard cash. Now my wife and I can enjoy a stress-free retirement.
Retiring the car as you retire. Nice. So why We Buy Cars?
It was so quick. They came over to our house to do the evaluation, and we sold it the same day. Tops, man.
Okay, so now you got even more time on your hands, eh?
Exactly.
We Buy Cars. Geared for your next chapter. Geared for you.
This week on Off-Pitch Goals, Sonono and Sanela Khoza join us and take us through the storied success of the Zodwa Khoza Foundation. We talk legacy, community building, and youth career pathways. Tune in to SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 this Saturday, 30 August at 6:30 p.m. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus. Off-Pitch Goals, where we showcase how the stars score in business. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The SAFM University Debate Challenge is back. The University of KwaZulu-Natal will take on the University of Zululand in what promises to be a nail-biting debate. Join us for the 1-hour debate on This Week Today with Oliver Dixon from 6 to 7 p.m. on Friday, the 5th of September, 2025. The SAFM University Debate Challenge is an independent, non-partisan progressive initiative seeking to develop confident communicators, critical thinkers, and empowered global citizens. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Message from the Commission for Gender Equality. As we commemorate Women's Month, the CGE highlights its 2024 report, Women in the South African Economy. The findings show that despite economic programs and initiatives, women remain excluded or underrepresented in labour markets, land ownership, finance, asset acquisition, paid care work, and rural economic decisions. The CGE continues to monitor, promote, and research gender equality with the goal of influencing policy and reforms that advance women's economic empowerment and transformation.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
You're listening to The Talking Point, a pleasure as we continue to lead conversations that move us. On the line today for Citizens Corner is Justice Edwin Cameron, Inspecting Judge of Correctional Services and also a retired judge of the Constitutional Court. We're talking about the calls that we are seeing, ever increasingly so, about reinstating the death penalty in the country as a mechanism to deal with crime. So there are, of course, legal, constitutional matters that this conversation also touches on, and Justice Edwin Cameron has been giving up some of his insights on this matter. I'll be taking your calls soon, so for those that want to engage the Justice directly on this issue, please do call in 086 000 2032. That's the number to dial, 086 000 2032. On the WhatsApp voice note line, 0614 104 107. So, Justice Cameron, before we went to news, you were urging us to look a bit more broadly as well, beyond the two key reasons that you have provided around the death penalty. You, of course, feel that it is something, at least statistically, globally, that has not worked as a deterrent to crime, but also that innocent people die. But you wanted us to take a broader look than that.
Correct. And thank you, Cathy. It's still a great pleasure to be with SAFM's listeners and with you. So when you said in your introduction about 20 minutes ago that crime is out of control, you didn't mean only crimes that would warrant the death penalty. And that, I think, underlies the calls for the return of the death penalty, that all of us feel that crime is completely out of control. There are people in some of the political parties and in government themselves who are looting us while people go hungry, and children, school children, the looting and corruption and criminality, syndicalized criminal gangs who are looting our exchequer and treasury are grieving many people, but also just safety. Home invasions are up. We heard that from the police recently. And what I want to do is to take us back. We become a democracy on the 27th of April 1994. On the 4th of February 1997, the new Constitutional Committee has a Constitutional Assembly, which is our first parliament, has finalized the Constitution. It's got this fine Bill of Rights. And there's a misapprehension amongst many people, the white people, but also black people in our new democracy, that crime is going up. In fact, the statistics show, the historical evidence shows that from 1994 to 2011, the crime rate went down, and particularly the murder rate went down systematically until it was almost half of what it had been in 1994. And what happens, I've got to be careful here because as a retired judge, I can't get political, but I can perform my duties as inspecting judge of prisons. And I want to ask your listeners, who was in power in 2011? and who appointed a new head of crime intelligence, a new head of crime intelligence, whom I won't name, but I've named him on other occasions, who was a criminal. And who was the president who did shady appointments to the head of SARS to wreck the tax agency, to wreck the National Prosecuting Authority, and who appointed either incompetent or shady people to head the police. And these weren't only the very top heads. At many levels of all the institutions I've mentioned, there were allies of that president who were appointed with what one might infer to be a mission to protect the president. And remarkably and distressingly, from 2011, and this I'm saying in my job as inspecting judge of prisons, the murder rate starts going up almost immediately until it's double again. I'm speaking roughly, so your listeners will forgive me for rounding off figures and for slight overstatements, almost doubles. And why? That's the core question about the death penalty. There are institutions of crime control in our beautiful country that were wrecked from 2011 onwards. We can rebuild them. There's no doubt. We had as a person living with HIV who's been on antiretrovirals for almost 28 years, I followed the debate. We had active presidential opposition to ARVs, and what did we do? To the credit also of that president whom I haven't named, under him there was a commitment to ARVs. Today, subject to Trump's attempt to wreck us, we have got the world's best and most efficient antiretroviral treatment program in the public service. So the point being, we can fix all of those institutions that we despair about. Shamila Vatoya has been trying to do that with the National Prosecuting Authority since her appointment 6 years ago. Very difficult because, of course, her requests to the current president to remove people with shady connections have not always been responded to or responded to promptly. Long story, Cathy, and I want to thank your listeners for letting me say it. Crime control rests upon efficient institutions, efficient, honest, active, caring institutions, starting with crime control. And an essential adjunct to crime control is an anti-corruption body, which Deputy Chief Justice Moseneke, as the leading author of a judgment which I co-authored in Glenister, said to government and to Parliament, you are constitutionally and under international law obliged to have an anti-corruption body that has teeth. We don't have that. Also, Glenister was 2011. So the long story is, to sum up, that we can rebuild our efficient institutions of crime control, those institutions that led to the diminution of all types of crime, particularly violent crime, up to 2011, when the pattern was reversed. And to conclude what I've said, and thank you to your listeners for letting me say all of this, the urge for a quick solution, for an effective solution, for a visible and strong solution lies behind the reinstatement plea for the death penalty, because so much else is out of control.
Yeah, and as you say that, Justice Cameron, you know, the first part of this conversation that we had, listeners were very clear that, at least some of them, that they don't believe the evidence that shows that the death penalty is not a deterrent, is not sufficient. Or, yes, they believe it's not sufficient in sustaining the argument for why it should not be reinstated. They acknowledge that, yes, innocent people may die, but such is the case, you know, in a war, that every war will have its casualties, and, you know, we must accept that as part of what happens in life. What they are seeking out is I guess, a level of security about the fact that there will be consequences for criminality, and consequences that even result in somebody's life again being taken away. So some of them have even called for a referendum, that we must have a referendum in this country and open up the conversation about the death penalty and its reinstatement in that way. So the question is two-part. Number one, legally, how would that work if it were to be done? Number two, what is the security or even the sense of security that South Africans can be given in our current context if the death penalty is not an option?
Well, you really go to the heart of it, Cathy. And first, let me say that the question of evidence is always difficult. I spoke about ARV provision in our country, which was held back because the second president of this country doubted and apparently still doubts the evidence about what causes AIDS and whether there's HIV and whether ARVs are an efficient answer to AIDS. And I can tell you, after 28 years, when I was dying in 1997 and was not far from death, but here I am this morning joyfully talking to you, that they work. But look what's happening in America. The evidence is being destroyed over a wide swathe of public life. So there are legitimate debates about evidence. And also, you have to understand that people are skeptical about evidence that doesn't match their convictions or their religious convictions. So I understand that the debate about the death penalty, people are reluctant to accept it. But all I can say with humility is that you can scour the books, and Advocate Wim Trengove and Gilbert Marcus and other advocates who appeared before the Constitutional Court in 1995 scoured the evidence, and there was no evidence that the death penalty actually worked as a deterrent. So I won't say more because I want to be respectful of the people who say, shut up, enough about evidence already. The second thing I want to say is that I do understand that argument about, we've got to enforce it even if there are occasional mistakes, until it's your son or your daughter or someone you love or someone you care for. And it's not being squeamish, but I think there's a terrible injustice when you ask the organs of justice, the institutions of justice, to go ahead recklessly, even at the risk of terrible injustice. And there are injustices in our country. I do believe that some of the people who write to me have been unjustly convicted, but at least we're not hanging them by the neck until they're dead. So I don't, saying those things, I know that some of them sound hollow. I'm not saying to proponents of the death penalty, you haven't got a right to say what you're saying and to be skeptical about what you're being skeptical. But let's try to argue this out, because our country has so much violence. That's why I opposed Minister Pieter Groenewald when he said he wanted to beat youngsters. He raised a legitimate issue, because going into awaiting trial or into prison is a terrible thing. And some people would definitely choose to be whipped and beaten rather than go into prison. But we have enough violence, and to add to violence by beating people and whipping them and by executing them is just going to make our country's violence worse.
Thanks for that. Let me bring in some of our listeners. I'm going to start off in Soweto. Bajo, good morning. Good morning, Bajo.
Yes, hi, Cathy. How are you?
I'm well. Were you still listening to the radio? You weren't expecting me to come to you.
Yeah, I wasn't. And thank you for taking my call. And
sure.
I think this is the first time I'll be speaking to a judge, let alone a justice. And I hope it stays like that forever. I don't ever have to come across a judge, either as a party or anything else. Cathy, when the justice mentioned something about the politics, I just turned off and I thought, here we go again. Because, you cannot want to blame, okay, maybe according to his view or opinion, you can bring what the former president has done, but what do you say about the previous president and the current president? And you don't want to bring that and raise that to the public. But importantly, Cathy, one thing I also want to raise is that many issues that we have in this country are because of our judiciary. And it's a pity that they do not want to acknowledge that, because maybe they want to be seen as upstanding members of the society and belonging to a noble profession, as they call it. But many issues that we are facing here are because of our judiciary.
Basho, just give me one example very quickly of why you say that.
Okay. You see, there's a case, well, let me refer to many cases, rape cases, murder cases, where the perpetrators are given bail, scot-free bail, without the necessary interest of justice. That's one typical example. So we are facing these things because of these justices and magistrates and judges that are busy pushing this. One thing that Peter Groenewald would say, and I wouldn't agree, I don't agree with Peter Groenewald's politics, but he talked of a punishment of whipping and children. That has been taken away from us by the very same constitutional court. That said, you cannot whip or deal with children in this certain way. You must find different ways to discipline children. I mean, that's taking away a tool that had worked for many years for parents. And then the court just takes it away and then wants to replace it with something different.
Okay.
So many of the issues that we're facing is because of the judiciary in this country.
All right, Basho. I'm going to have to leave it there with you, but I believe you made the point. Ronald, you're in Midrand. Good morning.
Morning, Cathy, and to our judge. Cathy, I listened to the judge. I'm finding no single compelling reason why there should be no death penalty. The judge did not offer any genuine reason, because he says two things. One reason he says we might end up hanging wrong people. The other one, it was used for political killings. But now we are not killing politicians. There is death penalty in South Africa, Cathy, whether you like it or not. There's death penalty every day, and by a foreign squad, by violent means. But you must decide whether you want to leave it at the hands of the criminals or you might to manage it as a state. People are killed every day. And when they are done killing, they go serve 8 years in prison and come back and go to a podcast. There's a podcast I always see where former criminals who killed brag about the exploits and the medals they got from killing people. We must decide whether we want one person to kill 20 people or we want to minimize it. Death penalty is there, yes. The people are using a scapegoat that, hey, this death penalty has got class, which is poor people, has got race, which is black. We don't care. If I sin, I kill someone, they must kill me. That is, we are killed every day. They kill the 3-month-old baby. They kill the elderly. They killed innocent people who are working, who are doing their job in their command. And we know who killed these people, but they are not killed because we don't have to kill. Why do you say we don't have to kill when people are killed in any case every day?
Ronald, thanks for that contribution. Maluela, you're in Polokwane. Good morning.
Morning, Cathy. Morning, Justice Cameron. Cathy, thank you very much for bringing Justice Cameron to your show. Some of us, the issue of death penalty is very close to our hearts, and we want to speak and even speak for those who are not able to speak for themselves. But some of us who can speak English a bit, we want to engage Justice Cameron. Justice Cameron, the people of South Africa today, they want the death penalty. And we're very clear on the death penalty. We are not saying that the death penalty is a deterrent for crime. We know there are many categories of crime. But on the crime where criminals, they kill innocent people, they murder innocent people, that category, specifically that one, we want these criminals to be murdered as well. We want those criminals to be killed. People today, they can premeditate, they can plan that they are going to Eastern Cape and kill 18 people. What happens to those people? 25 years in prison. That is nothing. As the people of South Africa, we say, we want Jonathan Moyo, the Zimbabwean who killed the 2 police officers. If we catch him, we want that person to be eliminated. We want to be brutal. These criminals, they are killing us. They are very decisive. They've made it clear. They are not talking like us. They don't have the ill spells. They are saying that if Malwela, we want to punish Malwela, the harshest penalty is to kill Malwela. They kill those people. That's all we are asking.
Okay.
And thank you, Cathy.
All right, Malwela, thanks for that. Sipho, you're in Midrand. Good morning.
Morning, Cathy. How are you?
Good, Sipho, go for it.
And morning to you, Judge there, or your guest. Cathy, I want to clarify something. This thing is simple and easy. Né? Let us forget, because I heard your guest is talking about previous president, whatever. Let us talk about what is happening now or today in our country. Who appointed that guy who sent them to is President Ramaphosa? Né? So, Sendom Tunu now, there's a rumors or there's an allegation that needs to be proved that he's a friend of Cathy Mohlahlana. Cathy Mohlahlana is the guy who is who's arrested now for facilitating the murder of the lady. Can you imagine? A lady, something like that. So if that thing happen, if he succeed to murder that lady, definitely sure if those things that were said by Sendom Tunu, by Tatam Konazi, is true. Do you think Sendom Tunu will be allowing South Africa to have that thing? What that punishment?
Commission?
No, not the commission. What that thing? If you're killing someone, that way, what we're discussing now,
death penalty.
Death penalty. Do you think that guy will be allowing that? No. ANC people, they will not allow that penalty to be reinstated in South Africa because they are friends of criminals. That is on a mediated thing, guys. It's on a mediated. Judge must not trying to protect people. ANC people, they will not, as long as ANC is still in charge, still ruling the country, they will not allow that. Most of them, I can say 90%.
Okay.
ANC people are criminals, so they will not allow those things happen.
Okay.
Can you imagine the whole minister is a friend of criminals?
Okay, Sipho, we know that those are still allegations, and it was conspiracy to commit murder. She was in an attack, but she survived. So she did not. She was not murdered, Sipho. Just to give a point of clarity there. Dr. Mthembu, good morning to you.
Hi, good morning, Cathy, and good morning to the judge. My observation, and I'd like the judge to comment. In his introduction, the judge did not mention violence and murder of women and children and rape of women and children. And what then this says to me is that the judge's worldview is that of a prisoner who happens to be male. So he's not appreciating, the violence and murder, even ripping of parts and burning of women and children. So basically his view on death penalty are not necessarily informed by the realities of black and poor women of this country.
Dr. Mthembu, thanks for that contribution, Dr. Mthembu. I'm so sorry. Justice Cameron, we have just over 2 minutes left for you to give your contribution and responses to those calls.
Thank you so much, Cathy. I really feel quite humbled by many of the things that your listeners have said. I would just make one correction. I think that Dr. Mthembu listened late, and that at the very start of my background, I mentioned children and women very much so at the forefront of my mind. And we can send Dr. Mthembu our transcript or the voice link. But I do think that this morning's discussion shows how widespread the rightful rage is. I started by saying that the rightful rage about crime being out of control, crime against women, as I mentioned, and against children and against households and looting in government. And my only answer is that we have to build, there's no quick solution to our anger, there's no quick solution to the heightening crime wave. We have to build up the effective institutions that stop criminals right from the cabinet, right from MECs and the top police persons right down, and we can build those institutions again, and that's what we should be doing.
And just your response, Justice, to the, I suppose, the overwhelming sentiment from our listeners about why they believe the death penalty must come back.
Well, my response is really, as I said earlier, to shut up, because people feel strongly and they want vengeance, as one of your listeners said. I think it's Mr. Malwele or Malele from Polokwane. They want vengeance, and they don't want to let anything stand in their way. And I don't have a response to that except to say, yes, you want vengeance, but let's see how we can get behind it. Even the Eastern Cape killings, what lay behind that? There's a suspicion that it was vengeance upon innocent rural people because of some drug deal that someone from that village might have been involved in. We're speculating, but get to the perpetrators and get to the people who are benefiting in the political parties, in government, in the police from drug deals. That would be an effective way to combat what is happening. But I realize that people want strong spirits, they want brandy and strong stuff, and I'm offering them water. I do realize that, and that's why I know that sometimes I have to keep quiet.
Justice Edwin Cameron, thank you so much for making time to speak to us this morning, and I think just the care that you have put into this conversation. It's just after 11 o'clock. Here are your latest news updates.
Thank you, Cathy. On the top stories, Somerset West taxi rank closed by SAPS and a former Brazil president placed under surveillance. For SAFM News, I am Ondelambana, and a very good morning. The Somerset West taxi rank has been closed by the South African Police Service for 24 hours to prevent further taxi-related violence. At least 6 people have been shot in taxi-related violence in Cape Town this week. Western Cape Premier Alan Wind says the ongoing violence between Kata and Codeta and the collapse of talks between the two taxi associations has put commuters and the public at risk. Wind says an urgent court application will be filed against these organizations as a measure to quell the violence, intimidation and unlawful operations.
The Western Cape government is in full support of the urgent measures to address the taxi violence that's been ongoing here in the region. The ongoing violence between Carter and Codeta, the collapsed talks between these two taxi groups has definitely put commuters at risk. And we support the South African Police Services, who have put a 24-hour closure into the Somerset West taxi rank.
The Public Servants Association, PSA, has noted with concern endless service disruptions at the Mbombela and White River driving license testing centres. The PSA says endless refurbishments, financial year-end closures and persistent system failures are causing chaos, leaving residents unable to renew licenses or secure vehicle permits. The PSA's Mpumalanga Labour Relations Officer, Pamela Litibele.
The PSA has noted that these disruptions have been happening for the longest of time. And the department claims that the refurbishments are aimed at modernizing facilities and improving service delivery. In reality, these upgrades have become endless disruptions with no clear timelines or visible improvements. And instead of improving services, they have created chaos. This isn't just an inconvenience, but a direct violation of citizens. So the PSA views this as a clear sign of poor planning and government inefficiency.
The High Court in Johannesburg will today hear an urgent application by businessman and philanthropist Colin Mashawana. Mashawana filed papers with the High Court seeking an interdict to stop news publication Daily Maverick to report further on his alleged involvement in the IDT's multi-million rand looting scandal. Mashawana is attempting to obtain a gag order to prevent further reporting on corruption allegations against him, his foundation, and IDT CEO Tebogo Malaka. Horisani Sitole reports.
In his urgent court papers filed last week, Mashawana has described the Daily Maverick's reporting as defamatory and an attempt to tarnish his name. Mashawana is seeking a temporary interdict against Daily Maverick and investigative journalist Peter Louis Maybeck. He wants the court to grant the takedown order for existing articles and a gag order to prevent discussion of the matter at the publication's upcoming The Gathering conference. The Daily Maverick alleges that Mashawana, through his Colin Mashawana Foundation, made at least 2 payments into IDT CEO Tebogo Malaka's 16 million rand luxurious waterfall mansion while benefiting from a 60 million rand EPWP tender through the IDT.
Judges Matters Advocacy Organization says the suspension of Justice Department Director General Advocate Dr. Mashabane and Deputy Director General Jabu Tlachwayo of the ICT division was unexpected. This follows their failure to ensure the Madlanga Commission could start as scheduled on the 1st of next month. A new date for the commencement of the Commission of Inquiry into Criminality, Political Interference and Corruption is not yet known. A full investigation and disciplinary process are underway. Judges Matters Research and Advocacy Officer Mbegezeli Benjamin says Justice Minister Mamuloko Kubai's decision to place the 2 senior officials on immediate suspension could be hasty.
Accountability is always a good thing, so it's important to see steps towards accountability being taken. However, in the context of this issue, we don't really have enough detail to check whether it is in fact a correct decision to suspend 2 very senior officials over issues relating to procurement, especially because the commission was only announced a few weeks ago, and it would have been expected that it would take a bit of time to get the system set up, and so it's quite surprising to see that within a few days that these 2 senior officials are suspended over lapses that relate to procurement for the commission.
A judge in Brazil has declared the former president Jair Bolsonaro a flight risk and placed him under round-the-clock surveillance while he awaits the verdict of his criminal trial. He faces up to 40 years in prison if convicted of plotting to overturn the results of the 2022 election. The BBC's Will Grant has more.
He is already subject to house arrest. This strengthens that, if you like, that it's around-the-clock surveillance. It said that it needed to be done discreetly. Nevertheless, officers will be around his home. It is, if you like, a ramping up of the surveillance and the control of the former president. Now, that's not going to go down very well with his supporters in Brazil, but nor with his supporters in the Trump administration, where he obviously has very, very strong support.
Recapping the top story, the Somerset West taxi rank has been closed by the South African Police Service for 24 hours to prevent further taxi-related violence. At least 6 people have been shot in taxi-related violence in Cape Town this week. I'm Ondilambana for SAFM News headlines at 11:30.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide, leading the conversation.
Are you looking for the best savings on spectacles? At Specsavers, enjoy 1,500 Rand off when you get tested at South Africa's trusted and most established optical group. Get 1,500 Rand off all frames in store, or use your 1,500 Rand off on our leading lens enhancements, such as drive light lenses that reduce artificial glare whilst driving. Book online or call your nearest store today. Affordable eye care, Specsavers. T's and C's apply.
This week on FC Meets, Tisetso and Bandile sit down with Mamelodi Sundowns ladies dribbling wizard Lehlohonolo Mashego. Find out about her rise to the top of women's football on the African continent and what motivates her to aim even higher. Tune in to SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 this Saturday, 30 August at 6 p.m. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus. FC Meets, football made for community by community. Rechencha game. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
What is Overtrail? Is it off the beaten path?
over the edge of comfort, or the thrill of the road less taken. It's over every bridge, every obstacle, every trail, and over to that view that takes your breath away. Overtrail means going further, exploring deeper, surrounded by the comfort and sophistication of a luxury SUV. It's this spirit that inspired the Overtrail project. Experience Overtrail in the LX and GX range. Lexus. Experience amazing.
SAFM brings you the Women's Circle on Friday, the 29th of August, live at Santon Hotel, celebrating the business of arts and women in South Africa. Tune in to the Full Circle with Bridget Masenga from 1 to 3 p.m. as we unpack a generational conversation with a captivating panel this Women's Month. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Let's have the conversation. WhatsApp voice notes on 0614 104 107.
Cathy, I fully agree with Judge Cameron about the increase in the murder rate, etc., during a certain period. But we must also remember that these days we have social tools that spread the news about certain things. So whether it's gender-based violence, whether it is crime statistics, murder rate, etc., these things are more recorded or well known by other people because of social media. But the other thing that really needs to be addressed is the child development programs. If we want to change our country, we have to start with the children from a very young age. Education department need more support, more teachers, etc., so that we can have children that can read and write and excel in school and belong.
Dumela, Cathy, Judge Cameron, Justice Cameron. How's Cathy? Yes, death penalty alone is not going to solve. But death penalty and other measures. So if they are saying death penalty is not going to solve any the crime and they are folding hands, it's not like they are coming up with other measures that will help to curb the crime in our country. They must come up with some measures that says, okay, we are saying this death penalty is not going to solve. Let's try this. But they are not saying that. It's like your house is on fire and you are folding your arms and say nothing. So they must come up with something. Death penalty and other measures can curb the crime in South Africa. Anonymous.
Hello, Sis Cathy in the studio and your guest. You see, I want to comment on this. You see, death penalty does not help anyone. You see, the fact that someone killed my child and now killing that person doesn't bring back my child. It doesn't help anyone. It doesn't benefit anyone. Even if that person is dead, my child will never come back again. So I think we need to look at these things differently. You know, I think and when you look at how things that are going on in South Africa, people are being arrested wrongfully. You know, they are being sentenced. Many people are in jail today who didn't commit crimes. So we need to look at those things. And I really don't think killing someone because he killed someone is a solution. It doesn't help anyone. It doesn't benefit anyone with that thing. It doesn't help. I think we rather try to find other ways that will help. But killing someone because he killed does not help.
Good morning, Cathy and the listeners. The issue of the Mahlanga inquiry shows you the ineptness of government employees. These people, they don't take serious what they do, and now the result of these consequences is what we're seeing now. These people should be fired. Mbudzeni in the Eastern Cape.
Spar brings you super savings.
Get 2 kg Omo Auto Powder, 1.5 litre liquid or capsules, 14s for $84.99, and 200 megs free data on Spa Mobile, or Huggies Dry Comfort Nappies or Pants, Jumbo Pack for $169.99, and 400 megs free data on Spa Mobile. Plus, you could win your share of 6 million rand in instant cash. Price is valid until 7 September 2025, while stocks last. T's and C's apply.
Hey there! Need to know your TV license balance but don't want to wait? No sweat! Just send a quick SMS with your ID or TV license number to 44210. Remember, standard SMS rates apply. And presto, your balance pops right up anytime, anywhere. It's as easy as pie. So why procrastinate? Give it a try and get your info in a flash. T's and C's apply.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply. Gender-based violence is destroying lives and tearing communities apart. It happens in homes, in schools, at workplaces, and too often in silence. But it doesn't have to continue. If you see it, speak out. If you are hurting, reach out. Because doing nothing is not an option. Listen to all 19 SABC radio stations from Wednesday, the 23rd of July for hard talk, discussions, advice, dramas, educational shows, and interviews around GBV with experts, survivors, lawmakers, and a whole country affected by gender-based violence. All on your favorite SABC radio station. Call 0800 428 428 to report abuse or get help. GBV, it ends with you. This message is brought to you by the SABC.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
You're listening to The Talking Point. Let's get into our final conversation for this hour. And actually, not for this hour, because we still have the G20 series coming up just after 11:30. So for this half hour, I should say, is more correct. Dr. Nombuso Madonsela is the country manager for the aid. But there are, of course, challenges in administering the program that we have. It doesn't happen also on its own, that there's a great deal of support that we have from other organizations, including organizations such as the AIDS Healthcare Foundation. Part of the focus, or the drive, was to try and build a future where we could talk about the erasure of HIV/AIDS, but unfortunately, we don't seem to be anywhere near that. However, there are some good stories to tell. There have been some opportunities, but of course, there are challenges. So, Dr. Madonsela, speak to us about, I guess, more broadly, just the fight that we have been waging against HIV/AIDS and what we have been able to do with implementing the treatment programs that we have in terms of giving people the opportunity to continue living their lives.
Thank you, Cathy. I think we all need to go back to where we come from as a country with the HIV epidemic. We started in the early 2000s without any treatment available for our clients, and some of us working in the facilities were experiencing patients dying from HIV. I think there's been tremendous milestones that have been attained by South Africa, supported by both civil society together with the AIDS councils and partners, in ensuring that we improve HIV testing and linking those who test positive to facilities and are initiated on treatment. And there has been an evolution also with the number of drugs that we started our patients on. In the early 2000s, patients were taking more than 5 or 6 drugs, but now we have reduced it to 1 tablet. But I just want to say that although we have reached a situation where we seem to at least have improved our HIV testing and increased testing rates and patients being initiated on treatment, we still have challenges of stigma in 2025, which shouldn't be there. And those patients that have been started on treatment are also disengaging from treatment. Some are relating treatment fatigue, and others are just relating that they are feeling better. So we still have a fight to ensure that we reach the goals of controlling the HIV epidemic. And I think there have been a lot of strides that have taken place within South Africa, being the largest HIV program within the country.
You know, as you're saying that, I'm thinking about how sometimes you try to put one fire out and then another starts up elsewhere, and that very much becomes a tale of HIV in our country. At some point, the focus, of course, was to get everybody on HIV treatment and then to try and tackle the infection rate amongst, middle age to perhaps your elderly people that were really the ones that were suffering the effect of either getting onto treatment late, not being on treatment at all, not being diagnosed at all. And yet, what we know is that we also saw a turning point in terms of what was happening in the country in managing the infection rate. Because now, while we've been able to get the people that need treatment, the majority of them on treatment, we then started seeing an increase in infections amongst young people. And that, again, seems to be something that is yet another fire that we have to put out.
I totally agree, because the whole aim of reaching and ending the HIV epidemic is to decrease new HIV infections. But we have seen an increase of the HIV infections amongst our vulnerable population, mainly the young girls, as you've alluded to, in the ages 15 to 24. And most of the reasons of where we are seeing there was that this population is vulnerable. We have issues with just young people in general, with their behavior and how they see HIV as a high risk. And we also see in our communities that our young people being vulnerable, and also looking at also the social determinants, become attracted to what we call our blesser-blessee, where we would find the older population engaging with unprotected sex with the younger population. So it is a subject that is really needs commitment from all spheres of both government and civil society, and also the communities, for us to be able to work with these young people, teach them how to protect themselves from HIV, improve literacy, and also minimize risky behavior. I think as young people, we do understand we all came from that particular age, but the risky behavior becomes increased, especially if you are involved with substances, and protection at that particular time becomes secondary. So it's it's some of the activities that as AHF South Africa, we are working with young girls to empower them to take their health into their own hands and be able to be advocates within the communities that they are staying, and be able to relate their experiences for those who are HIV positive, but to also empower them to protect themselves by using combination prevention mechanisms like utilization of the condom, and also utilization of what we call pre-exposure prophylaxis. So we are aware, and as HF South Africa, we really are working with the young populations, and we are in the process of actually even working with the young boys, because it is not only the girls, but we need to also assist the young boys in them identifying the risky behaviors and be able to protect themselves from both HIV and STI. I think as a program and as AHF South Africa, we really advocate for the condom use, because it not only prevents HIV, but it also prevents unwanted pregnancies together with sexually transmitted infections.
Do you think that there is a direct relationship and possibly a causal effect between people being able to access treatment at scale, and then also the view of HIV/AIDS still being such a significant public health threat, especially for a country like South Africa?
I think the access to HIV treatment and testing, as I've said, is freely available. And the patients or the communities are aware. I think education has been scaled up, patient literacy on the dangers and the awareness on HIV, and for them to be able to test for HIV. Our challenge, I think, currently is not really access to treatment. I think access has been improved, or facilities that we are supporting in the Department of Health have improved access to treatment, and also have shortened the waiting periods that we used to see because of the universal test and treat. But what we are seeing, like I said, is that stigma still plays a role. You find patients will take treatment, but they have not disclosed because they fear for their lives. There's a lot of gender-based violence and intimate partner violence. And patients also still feel that they need to protect themselves and hide that they are HIV positive, because like any chronic disease, HIV still has stigma in 2025. And those that are on treatment, we find that they disengage from treatment. So those are the challenges that we have currently within the program. I think the access is freely available. I don't think we have a challenge of the access. A challenge which the department we are working with right now is to really say those patients that tested HIV positive and are not on treatment, we need to bring them back to care. And we have patients that tested, were never initiated, or patients that just disengaged. And as human beings, we understand patients get tired. We understand patients move around, but we need to really cement that patient literacy to say that this is a chronic condition, just like diabetes, just like hypertension.
Yeah. So
we should be able to continue taking treatment and not stop treatment.
So the question I was asking Dr. Madonsela was more related to, because treatment is widely available, has that played a role in how then people see their own management and limiting their own risk in as far as exposure to HIV. That, I don't have to do what the health practitioners are advising me to, because even if I do get infected, I know that it's not a death sentence anymore.
It could be partly that the risky behavior that we are seeing could be partly to an increased access to HIV treatment and facilities being available. But I think there's still a misconception that in our communities where people will judge an individual to be HIV negative just by their appearance, or even underplay the risk of contracting HIV, thus engaging in risky behavior. So I would say that we still have those challenges, besides the fact that treatment is available and they do know that if I do get infected, I'll be on treatment. Risky behavior is still out there in our communities. And really the utilization of condom is something that needs to be upscaled within our particular communities, because they seem to feel that they are safer being in a relationship with anyone without using a protection.
Yeah. Okay. Dr. Madonsela, thanks for that contribution. She's the country manager for AIDS Healthcare Foundation South Africa. Well, we're going to leave it there with Dr. Madonsela for now. It is 11:30. On the other side of this, we'll get into our G20 series with Lerato Tsebe.
Thank you, Cathy. On the news headlines, Mitchell's Plain police are investigating a case of murder and a case of attempted murder after a 25-year-old man was gunned down and another injured in a shooting incident in Beacon Valley. Scores of disgruntled residents from Nigel, east of Johannesburg, have embarked on a protest this morning, blockading several roads in the area. And Media Monitoring Africa says cases aimed at silencing investigative journalism focused on exposing corruption in the private and public sectors are increasingly becoming common. The High Court in Johannesburg will today hear an urgent application by businessman and philanthropist Colin Mashawana. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
Who says talking never solves anything? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Dis-Chem's Beauty Fair is here. Enjoy unbeatable savings on skincare that loves your skin as much as you do. Glow, hydrate and radiate. From expert-approved dermacosmetics to everyday essentials, we have the perfect match for your skin and your budget. Our skincare specialists are on hand, ready to help you find the best for your skin. Don't miss Dis-Chem's Beauty Fair, now on. Stock up on skincare, cosmetics and fragrances at prices you will love. Offers valid until 14 September.
Iman, can you believe my Gogo reads with me every single night?
My dad plays soccer with me.
But my dad walks me to school every single day.
My mom works all day and I love it when she arrives home and gives me a big squishy hug. Oh man, we're so loved.
What did you do today? Visit
holdmyhand.org.za.
Together, we can change their future. This is an SABC-supported initiative.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
Cathy Mohlahlana is streaming live now on Facebook, YouTube, and X at SAFM Radio.
Well, let's get into our G20 series. Lerato Tsebe is standing by, and by now you should know that every Wednesday at this time she brings us an update in as far as the G20 related activities that we're seeing unfold are. It is, of course, as South Africa holds the presidency of the G20, and we are then running many of the processes related to that all-important conference that will take place in November, which is getting ever so closer. Lerato Tsebe, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, Cathy. And yes, you are quite right. We are getting ever so much closer to the end of the line. Less than 90 days, I believe.
Oh, less than 90 days. Oh, that makes it feel much closer, actually. But before we get into it, please allow me to wish you a happy belated birthday. I hope it was full of diplomatic cheer.
Thank you so much, Cathy. I really appreciate it.
All right. Lerato, not a good look for the youth. Not a good look for the youth. Last week was the Y20 summit, and it was the meeting of the youth held here in Johannesburg, but they couldn't agree on what should go into the final communique. Why?
Cathy, the youth have agreed to disagree. This was on the Y20 website, I just saw this morning, they've actually finally released a statement, but they only released it on the 25th. One of the big bones of contention here was the issue of language. And what they are stating in this communique, and I will read you some points verbatim, was the issue of gender and inclusion. Now, what's going to happen now, by virtue of the fact that they didn't agree on a communique as a grouping, the chair, being South Africa, is going to have to release a 5-point chair summary to be released. Now, in the statement that the Y20 has released, they're quite explicit in what they're saying, and in what occurred or transpired, rather. And it does state here, and I would like to quote, "It is worth noting that our first deliberated topic was on gender, where delegates spent over 3 hours in constructive negotiation until a compromise was reached. By contrast, when the Y20 Council was raised at the second agenda item, there was no willingness to engage in substantive deliberation at all." It is the first time in 14 years that the Y20 is concluding without a statement. They do also quite explicitly state this in their statement. They believe that there were countries that were not willing to compromise on the language about gender inclusion. Now, I thought this was very interesting because, you know, when you think of Y20, you're thinking of everyone between the ages of 18 through 25. So we're talking about Gen Zs essentially. So I thought it was a very interesting point that a political position as well, that gender inclusion was something that younger people could not agree on, about charting the way forward. The Y20 Council is obviously the group of people. It is a permanent mechanism or a forum really that South Africa had designed to ensure that there's continuity in the implementation and, you know, their policy agreements and policy positions that they conjure up. But the Y20 for next year, should it happen for 2026, seemingly really couldn't agree on this.
Yeah, look, I mean, I'd be very interested in sort of seeing the nitty-gritty of what in particular around the language what was problematic. Do you get a sense that it had to do with the fact that we know that young people generally now have and can have very divergent views about how society is shaped, how society is influenced? Do you think it had to do with that?
I think, Cathy, it's also about religion. It's also about the current geopolitical climate, where there's sort of a regression into political conservatism.
Yeah.
And it really was quite surprising for me to note that this is now impacting young people between the ages of 18 to 25. Concerning, for me, it's a great concern because this is the new big voting demographic globally, right? So that was my primary concern was that young people don't feel as though gender equity and gender diversity and gender inclusion are values and virtues that they hold dear as a generation.
Yeah.
So it's a massive, massive regression, socially and socio-politically speaking, I feel.
Okay. Also, last week was the 9th TICAD Summit, TICAD, and President Cyril Ramaphosa was there along with other African heads of states in Japan. A number of discussions about trade, but what actually came out of it? Is it just me, or have there been a lot of these this year? Is it because the president is attending a lot of them?
It's more so attributed to the fact that the global political climate is so erratic. So for me, it's quite natural that we're going to have so many different forums and so many different regions of the world outside of the African continent courting the African continent. You must remember that 25% of the global population is going to be Africa by 2050, is it? And by 2030, more than half the continent is going to be under the age of 25. So this is inferring, workforce. It's inferring adaptive skills. It's inferring we need to increase our trade volumes for this particular region. But the president had a very successful 4-day summit, and so did, G20 member Japan, where renewables really took center stage, and energy at these deliberations. South Africa signed a number of agreements. Minister Ramokgopa, obviously, there as Minister of Energy for representing us, and also the UN Secretary General Guterres just lamenting on the fact that Africa is the next big energy powerhouse, and that we need far more favorable loan agreement terms for us to be able to procure the proverbial capital from outside of the globe. I thought Japan really put their best foot forward here and really made a very aggressive push after they themselves have been sanctioned by tariffs, and now our BRICS counterparts, India, been slapped with 50% tariff as of yesterday. And Japan really is trying to also compete, I think, with other regional powerhouse China, saying, look, we've also got much to offer here. We've got value for money, and also wanting to ensure that we are able to diversify our own market offering. This is something the president has been discussing, I think, for the past few weeks, especially since our own trade and positions came into play, that we need to find better markets and alternative markets. And seemingly, he's really gone for the gauntlet. He released a very strongly worded statement, I felt, on Monday, a bit provocative, sort of indicating that we're not going to have our foreign policy dictated to us about who we can talk to and who we can and cannot be friends with, essentially, is what he's insinuating. So I think he's sort of putting his money and his foot where his mouth is.
And then I want us to look at Basic Education Minister Siviwe Gwagube. She was speaking at the G20 National Education Indaba, encouraging South African teachers to embrace AI in their classrooms or be left behind. Now, it's coming from the minister. She can make decisions, not only encourage, but speak to us about what else came out of that session.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite interesting, Cathy. They were meeting in Cape Town yesterday. It's part of a series of indabas that have been happening throughout the countries in relation to basic education. The theme of their meeting was advancing quality foundational learning through the development of ECD and education. The minister sort of trying to really, encourage South African teachers to adapt and embrace AI and bring it into their classrooms, and ensuring that they're utilizing it to be able to enhance their capabilities and also adaptation. A lot of the experts, they were stating that essentially AI is evolving too rapidly for teachers to ignore or to not really to consider not utilizing it. Now, the issue of accessibility in South African public schools to just basic computers, I thought, is a different conversation. And another conversation we need to have is we can ask teachers to adapt, but but do we have the necessary skills and tools to be able to assist them to do so? The Indaba is part of the G20 Educational Working Group, and they've got 3 strategic priorities, which is quality foundational learning, mutual recognition of qualifications, and educational professional development in a changing world. The minister did try to encourage or try to really assure as well South African teachers, I think, that AI is not going to replace you in the classroom, but that it is a tool that we do need to enhance and bring earlier into the curriculum for children.
Yeah, I look, the point is you can't encourage people to bring AI into schools when they are not being given the tools to do that. And you are speaking as a minister, right? Who you're at the forefront of making it happen, right? So, yeah, it's always very interesting when we look at some of these conversations. But let's talk about what's next on the calendar.
So next week, you've got the 3rd Task Force meeting on food security. That's from the 1st to the 3rd of September. And more excitedly, on the 2nd of September in Johannesburg at the Sandton Convention Centre, Chief Justice Meyer will be hosting her peers, Chief Justices, Chief Justice Presidents for the J20 or the Judicial 20. They will be meeting at the Sandton Convention Centre. So I'm very excited for her on her big international debut.
Lovely. We'll look forward to that. Lerato Tsebe, this is where we leave it for today. I won't ask you about what plans you have for your birthday over the weekend, but I know it will all be very diplomatic.
Thank you very much, Cathy.
That's our Lerato Tsebe giving us the G20 series wrap of the week. It brings us to the end of the show. We're back with you again tomorrow between 9 and midday. Up next is the book reading.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
Early hours of the morning, our champions of democracy open voting stations for us. 55% of the 27.6 million registered voters are women. We salute your strength and leadership. Late into the night, they count votes for us. Majority of women voted in the last elections. We salute women championing democracy and shaping South Africa's future. Make your voice heard at the ballot. All roads lead to the 2026 local government elections. Register or update your details. Show up and let your vote count. Here's to Women's Month. Women champion democracy. Visit elections.org.za for more or call 0800 11 8000. This message is brought to you by the IEC.
This Women's Month, SAFM stands with the women shaping South Africa's future. Under the theme, Building Resilient Economies for All, we honor the pioneers, the problem solvers, and the everyday heroes driving change. Stay tuned as SAFM brings you powerful stories and meaningful conversations that move us. SAFM, celebrating women, celebrating progress. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. If we have rights, shouldn't we also have opinions? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
SFM's award-winning drama department presents another episode of the book, A Testament of Hope, the autobiography of Dr. Sam Motswenyane. Please note that the views expressed in this book are not that of the station. Listeners' discretion is advised.
Kuwait, with its strong attachment to Western countries such as the United States, ran a political system along more democratic lines. One could see this in the way ordinary people, especially women, dressed and behaved as opposed to those in Riyadh, for example. The Kuwait government had also created spaces for non-Muslims and Christians to worship in their country by allowing churches to be built. In Bahrain, I visited 2 universities, the University of Bahrain in Manama and the College of Medicine, situated a few kilometers from each other. I also visited one university in Oman called the Sultan Qaboos University. During my travels in Yemen, I went to inspect the new free port that was being established at Aden Harbor near the Horn of Africa. Although the port was still under construction in 1999, a fairly large section of it was already completed and ready for use. On the western part of Oman at Sal Allah, I also found a container port that was already operating and seeking to establish a commercial link with our port in Durban. The western part of Oman is, like the Azar province in Saudi Arabia, a tourist attraction during the hot summer months in that country. One of the important tourist attractions near Sal Allah is the grave of Job, whose story is featured in the Bible's Old Testament. In Riyadh, all African ambassadors are invited upon arrival to join the African group of ambassadors. I joined this group early in 1997, and our South African embassy was at that time elected to perform the secretarial function in the group. The main objectives of the African group of ambassadors were to promote a spirit of brotherly affinity among the ambassadors, to receive and welcome African leaders visiting Riyadh regularly on official state visits, and to promote Africa by celebrating Africa Day together at one organized celebration. During the Africa Day celebrations, different African embassies bring artworks and other arts and crafts from their home countries for display. Upon departure from Riyadh, African ambassadors are given a farewell party by their colleagues. I very much enjoyed my associations with this group and received a warm send-off from all of them on my departure from Riyadh at the end of August 2000. At a farewell function organized on my behalf by the staff of the South African Embassy in Riyadh on the 16th of August 2000, I spoke as follows. Excellencies, honored guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is not common practice to make speeches at such informal receptions, but I feel somewhat compelled to make a few remarks on this occasion. For any ambassadors, the end of one's tour of duty is an event which brings joy, sadness, or both. At the end of my 4-year term as ambassador to Saudi Arabia, I find myself trapped in the uninviable position of having mixed feelings, happy to be free to go home, but sad to be leaving my good friends behind. All reasonable people will obviously understand, and I also clearly concede that all good things do have a beginning as well as an end. For me, however, it appears that the end has come too soon. Excellencies and honorable ladies and gentlemen, in welcoming you, let me also say that I feel greatly honored by your presence in such numbers here tonight to bid me farewell. Your being here is indeed a clear demonstration of true friendship, which I sincerely appreciate. As I'm about to reach the end of my tour of duty as South Africa's ambassador to Saudi Arabia, I would like to truly express how deeply indebted I feel to the very many Saudi citizens who have since my arrival treated me like a real brother, with the utmost respect, courtesy, and affection. I received an incredible amount of cooperation and assistance from everybody in all quarters, which has made my assignment to Saudi Arabia the happiest, most fruitful, and enjoyable one. For all that, I wish to convey my very sincere and profound gratitude to the King, the government, and the people of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Our primary task and responsibility as ambassadors is to promote good relations between the host country and the countries we represent. I'm pleased that at the end of my tour of duty, I can go back home with a happy assurance and satisfaction that relations between the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and my country, South Africa, are sound and improving at all levels. Diplomatic and business ties between the two countries have developed significantly during the past 3 years, but there is still wide scope for further bilateral cooperation in the cultural, tourism, educational, and technological sectors in the future. You may at this stage be justifiably curious to know where I shall be going from here. My firm decision is to retire and to spend the rest of my remaining years doing the things I like most, which I never had the chance of doing. These are farming and writing. That, of course, depends on whether I still have sufficient energy left to continue working. Otherwise, I shall be quite happy to sit down and eat honey. How about that? Finally, let me immensely thank my staff at the South African Embassy for helping to arrange this evening's impressive farewell reception on my behalf. I thank them especially for their loyal support and cooperation during the tenure of my service in this country. I hope that the same amount of support will be extended to my successor when he arrives. Excellencies and honorable gentlemen, it is good having you here tonight. Thank you for your support and enjoy the rest of the evening. Thank you. Chapter 16. The creation and evolution of the Winterveld Citrus Project. It was for me quite an exciting event to be back home after 4 years of absence, living in countries far away from my childhood friends and family. I had for some time been looking forward to coming home to rest. For the first few months after my arrival in South Africa, I had very few people coming to see me at home because they were not yet aware of my return from Saudi Arabia. This situation, however, soon changed as more and more people heard that I was back at home in reasonably good health. In 2001, the mayor of Tshwane, Reverend Father Smangaliso Mkhatshwa, phoned to invite me to his office for an important discussion. It emerged from our meeting that he wanted to ask me to serve as chairperson of a mayoral advisory committee which he was planning to constitute. It is not always in my nature to say no to a call to serve, especially if this is done to benefit the people who need the assistance that I feel competent to provide. I accordingly agreed to serve as requested because I concluded that this engagement would require very little of my time. With the passage of time, however, I came to realize how grossly wrong I was to have underestimated the enormity of the task that I had willingly agreed to undertake. The mayoral advisory committee that was finally constituted consisted of a large steering committee with several subcommittees reporting to it on a monthly basis. I, as chairperson of the steering committee, had to ensure that the subcommittees functioned properly in terms of the rules prescribed for them. Unfortunately, as it often occurs with large organizations, some committees fail to fulfill their obligations properly. Committee members sometimes renege on their duties by reporting irregularly and by their lack of punctuality at meetings. All these contribute substantially to the ineffectiveness of organizations.
That was another episode of the book, A Testament of Hope, the autobiography of Dr. Sam Mohlahlana. The book is available online on www.kmmr.co.za, KMMR Publishers, and in all leading bookstores countrywide. It is broadcast on SAFM at 11:45 Monday to Thursday on The Talking Point. It is produced for the station by Vovi Patala, read by Samson Kumalo. Technical production, Wiseman Manele, Nanda Koza, and Tato Mapuruma.
SAFM has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech, or contain violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. PO Box 142365. Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide.
O'clock on Wednesday, the 27th of August 2025. A very warm welcome to Updated Noon here on SAFM. Leading the conversation, I'm Sakina Kamwendo. Coming up in the next hour.
I'm furious. I'm very furious. I'm Mrs. Piekers. And I am living in Coronation for how long? It's 8 years that they promise and they don't do anything. 8 years.
Residents of Westbury and Coronationville in Johannesburg have taken to the streets again in protest after enduring more than 5 days without running water.
Interpol plays a critical containing role in limiting these illicit financial flows, which of course are so harmful.
And the 27th Interpol African Regional Conference has kicked off in Cape Town. Coming up in sport.
Big football coming up today. It's a six-pointer, Sakina says. We'll find out a little bit more from the players and the coaches, and also Lloyd Harris on one of the big courts at the US Open.
Thanks so much, John. He'll be back with the details in the second half of the show. In the meantime, let us know what's on your mind. Please share your views with us. 41391 is the SMS line number. You will be charged R1.50 per SMS. You can also get in touch via X at SABC News_radio or send us a WhatsApp voice note on 082-692-3909. Well, these and more stories coming up on this Hump Day edition of Updated Noon. First, though, here's the latest news with Ondelambana.
Thank you, Sakin. On the top stories, Mitchell's Plain police investigate a case of murder after shooting, and Donald Trump to chair meeting on Gaza. For SAFM News, I am Ondelambana, and a very good day. Mitchell's Plain police are investigating a case of murder and a case of attempted murder after a 25-year-old man was gunned down and another injured in a shooting incident in Beacon Valley. Police spokesperson Joseph Swartboy says the incident happened last night. He says no arrests have been made.
Unknown assailants arrived in separate vehicles and fired numerous gunshots at the occupants at the mentioned address. The 25-year-old man did not survive this onslaught on his life, whilst another man who sustained gunshot wounds was transported to a nearby hospital for medical treatment. The unknown assailants fled the scene and they are yet to be arrested. The motive for this attack is believed to be gang-related.
Frustrated residents of Westbury in Johannesburg are calling on President Cyril Ramaphosa to intervene in the ongoing water crisis, which has plagued the community for years. Residents have barricaded roads with burning tyres and heavy stones in protest over water outages. They say they've been enduring for more than 2 weeks without running water, a crisis they say has crippled schools, households and even the local hospital. They have vowed to continue with their protest action until their demands are met.
Very frustrating, especially where I live, because a lot of senior citizens that are living there. We have a problem at the schools. When the kids go to school, there's no water.
The water is cut off for 5 days. We have to run around for water, buy water. We got old age people that also takes medication.
I'm furious. I'm very furious. It's 8 years that they promise and they don't do anything. See, I'm going to Cyril Ramaphosa there on top because when I ask them here, they say the orders come from top.
They are turning off our water every time. How are we supposed to wash? How are we supposed to do washing? How are we supposed to use our toilets? There, our school closed down today. Why? Because of a water issue.
Scores of disgruntled residents from Nigel, east of Johannesburg, have embarked on a protest this morning, blockading several roads in the area. This comes as they claim that the Alra Park Primary School is not safe for learners. Residents claim that the school is dilapidated and not in good condition for learners to be in. Ekurhuleni Metro Police spokesperson Lerato Munyane.
The community of Nigel took to the streets their grievances and barricaded the Balfour Road in Nigel with burning tires, throwing motorists and pedestrians with stones. It is alleged that they do not want their children to be utilizing the Arla Park Primary School as it is old and not in a good condition. The EMPD Tutuza precinct officers and the SAPS POPs members attended to the protest and the situation has been neutralized. But officers are still monitoring the place. Traffic is flowing smoothly.
Media Monitoring Africa says cases aimed at silencing investigative journalism focused on exposing corruption in the private and public sectors are increasingly becoming common. The High Court in Johannesburg will today hear an urgent application by businessman and philanthropist Colin Mashawana. He will face off in court against the Daily Maverick and journalist Peter Louis Mayberg. Mashawana is seeking an urgent gag order to halt the outlet's report on alleged corruption tied to him and his foundation. He claims the Daily Maverick's articles are defamatory and aimed at publicly shaming him. Media Monitoring Africa Director William Bird.
Very often these efforts are made in order to try and silence and censor the journalists. This is otherwise known as a weaponization of the courts. This is strategic litigation against public participation, and that's effectively where you have a powerful person that seeks to try and use the law in order to stop and censor someone or a group of people from going out there and telling their story. And so it seems to be completely outrageous that you've got someone who's in a position of power who's been exposed for wrongdoing, who's instead of trying to spin it their own way, it's going and threatening media and trying to silence them. It also seems utterly futile to be doing it in a context where the story's already out there.
U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff says President Donald Trump will chair a large meeting on post-war Gaza in Washington later today. This as Israel pushes ahead with the plan to conquer the territory. Trump's earlier plan was to take over Gaza and relocate its citizens, asked if Israel should act differently to end the war and secure the return of hostages. Witkoff predicted that the matter will be settled one way or another.
There needs to be a deal. There needs to be hostages sent home. There would be a commensurate amount of Palestinian prisoners who would be sent home too. Every time we see a hostage release, we see jubilation on both sides. And Hamas understands that they can have nothing to do with the government going forward.
Recapping the top story, Mitchell's Plain police are investigating a case of murder and a case of attempted murder after a 25-year-old man was gunned down and another injured in a shooting incident in Beacon Valley. I am Mondelambana for SFM News Headlines at 12:30.
Update at noon with Sakina Kamwendo, midday to 1 p.m. Update at noon with Sakina Kamwendo.
Thanks so much, Ondela. Good afternoon, everybody. 8 minutes after 12 it is, and thanks so much for tuning in to Update at Noon. So here's some of the stories that we're going to be following up on in the next 52 minutes or so. So Westbury residents, they took to the streets yesterday, and they vowed to come back today, and indeed they have. So the residents of Westbury and Coronationville, literally a stone's throw from where we are at the SABC, they are actually protesting because they've had problems with water supply before, and they say this has been going on for 8 years. But over the past few days, we're told that it's about a week or more now. They've been without running water, so residents have taken to the streets, and we've got our reporter Calvin Dludla monitoring that situation for us. We'll catch up with him in a short while. And then the Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Ronald Lamola, to brief the media on developments relating to the implementation of South Africa's foreign policy. Ditaba Tsotetsi on that story. And then the state-owned Daybreak, they plan to restart operations at one of the abattoirs and feed mills through an operating partner to begin generating cash again. And this cash, they say, will allow the company to sustain itself through the business rescue proceedings. You'll remember Daybreak entered business rescue in May this year after reports emerged that they had failed to pay staff in April and that thousands of chickens had to be culled due to poor living conditions. You'll remember we did that story quite extensively here on the program. So we're trying to follow up to find out what the latest is there. The ANC Youth League, they are holding a press briefing, or I saw it a short while ago. Not sure if it has concluded, but there's definitely a press briefing being held ahead of the NGC in Kimberley. Party is likely to reflect on the current developments and also upcoming ANC NGC. Spatle Mota on that story. And the 27th Interpol conference in Cape Town, that has already kicked off. And of course, this time around, looking to emphasize South Africa's commitment to regional and international cooperating and combating transnational organized crime, terrorism, and other security threats. And then, of course, the civil rights organization AfriForum, we'll speak to them in a short while. Now, they've lodged an internal application with the Gauteng Department of Transport for answers about the cost of the province's new number plates. That's coming up shortly, and also some court cases that we're keeping an eye on.
Keeping your family healthy this winter can feel like a daunting task. Try the Lung Shield range. It includes capsules to support healthy lungs and immunity, a syrup for kids that supports the immune system and promotes lung health, and an effervescent with 13 essential ingredients to optimize immune function. Put your family's health first this winter with the Lung Shield range. Available without a prescription at leading pharmacies. Lung Shield, prescribed by doctors, recommended by pharmacists.
This week on Off-Pitch Goals, Sonono and Sanela Khoza join us and take us through the storied success of the Zodwa Khoza Foundation. We talk legacy, community building, and youth career pathways. Tune in to SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 this Saturday, 30 August at 6:30 p.m. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus. Off-Pitch Goals, where we showcase how the stars score in business. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
What is Overtrail? Is it off the beaten path, over the edge of comfort, or the thrill of the road less taken? It's over every bridge, every obstacle, every trail, and over to that view that takes your breath away. Overtrail means going further, exploring deeper, surrounded by the comfort and sophistication of a luxury SUV. It's this spirit that inspired the Overtrail project. Experience Overtrail in the LX and GX range. Lexus. Experience amazing.
Do you know what's hiding behind colorful packaging of unhealthy food? Big food companies target children with unhealthy packaged foods that hide high levels of sugar, salt, and fat, which could lead to heart disease, diabetes, and hypertension. But the truth is hidden from consumers. Front-of-package warning labels are a proven solution to help consumers make informed decisions. The government must act now. We have the right to know what's in our food. Demand